Hello?
Hey, yo, Keisha, what up? It's Knowledge right here. Where the fuck that nigga Tommy at?
He's out of town. What's wrong with you?
The fuck you mean what's wrong with me, bitch? First of all, the motherfucking feds done bum rushed my motherfucking crib this morning. Second of all, I ain't heard shit from nobody. Third of all, they probably got your fucking phone tapped and know where the fuck you at, you stupid bitch.
Bench? Who the fuck you calling a bench? You the bench once Tommy finds out about this.
Give me that sexy face when I pull up. Bite your bottom lip, baby, when you wanna help. Show me what you're thinking. If you really want it, give me that sexy face. I'm so in lust. Give me that sexy face. A smile could mean 1,000 words. You don't have to say a thing. The fire in your eyes makes it smoky in here, giving a signal, babe, that can't wait. My favorite expression when I know it's time. Don't need no confession. I can read your mind, and the harder you stare, your body gets louder. Your kiss is kryptonite, taking all my power. Give me that sexy face when I pull up. Bite your bottom lip, baby, when you wanna help. Show me what you're thinking. If you really want it, give me that sexy face. I'm so in lust. Yes. Give me that sexy face.
Just the other day that we hooked up, I was driving, you was walking, and I swooped you up. From that moment on, I knew you were the one. Yeah. I was single, you was lonely, and we fell in love. We didn't talk for hours about anything. Baby, you hang up, no, you hang up, on 3 hang up. I brought you with my picture and I gave you everything. Said you'd always be my baby, then you bow. How you gonna love me?
Baby, I wanna go. Watch out. I want my dick in your throat. I gave you this day, but you thought it was a joke. Like, I gave her something that I hold on when I'm smoke. Like, don't fuck with them niggas, don't let them get too close. Fuck all them niggas gotta go. Fuck all them bitches, I left them at the door. Like, when they come to sex, you know that you the goat. That pussy poppin', I hit them with the smoke. Like, EP, big rocks. Niggas know I'm the realer. If I came to dinner, I'm really the top one slicer. I did something wrong, but I'm always right. Said I know how to shoot, and I know how to fight. I tell you once, I'll tell you twice. You pay for the day, I pay for the night. I'ma do what you like. I'ma eat on that pussy with ice. I'ma beat on that pussy like ice. But I want your head like lights, for sure. Baby, I wanna go. Watch out. I put my dick in your throat. I gave you this day, but you thought it was a joke. Like, I gave her something that I hold on when I'm smoke. Don't fuck with them niggas, don't let them get too close. Fuck all them niggas gotta go. Fuck all them bitches, I left them at the door. Like, when they come to sex, you know that you the goat. That pussy poppin', I hit them with the smoke. Like, EP, big rocks. Niggas know I'm the realer. If I came to dinner, I'm really the top one slicer. I did something wrong, but I'm always right. Said I know how to shoot, and I know how to fight. I tell you once, I'll tell you twice. You pay for the day, I pay for the night.
It seems like it seems like it seems like it seems
Yo,
like
fuck, I look like killing a nigga from one. Fuck, I look like being nice, sweet, charming, and woman. Get the fuck out, loose. You ain't welcome anymore. Get the fuck out, loser. We ain't feeling you no more. Back the fuck up. Move the fuck out. Back the fuck up. Move the fuck out. Back the fuck up. Move the fuck out. Back the fuck up. We ain't feeling you no more. Back the fuck up. Move the fuck out. Back the fuck up. Move the fuck out. Back the fuck up.
Hey, Rock, are you on mute?
I was on mute, girl, and I was laughing to keep kidding. Hey,
Hello, darling.
how you doing, babes?
I'm doing okay. Today was a interesting day. Interesting day. Working from home. Eavesdropping on niggas. You know what I mean? But it was interesting. I'd say that it was interesting.
You know what? That's funny. Me too. I was working, you know what I'm saying? Always in my damn office. Always in my office, honey. When I was popping in, eavesdropping on people being nosy, honey, I was in This Might Be Risky Discord today, honey. We was having us a good little conversation. I was like, oh, this
Mm,
deserves a deeper look.
I wasn't there, but I am. It sounds juicy.
It definitely was. So, in Ham's Discord, he has little channels and stuff like that where people will bring up random conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, the conversation broke down to, a lot of women in the space feeling like they're not respected by the men.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, they don't want to give the men respect.
Yeah.
And, I have a different perspective on the situation. And as one of the most controversial people in the space, I tried to explain my stratagem. And it went over a lot of people's heads.
We have
Because
another day then. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I believe in taking the whole, right? But that's because I'm a strong proponent of the art of war.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was sharing little snippets from the art of war, people in the chat, were like, "Oh, is that the 48 laws of power?" And it was intriguing to me because while both are really great books,
Mm-hmm.
I think one is the light and one is the lie.
Okay, now you got me feeling the juice. Go ahead.
Yeah, like the 48 laws of power is one that is written in recent history with recent society in mind.
Okay.
So for me, the 48 laws of power speaks to lying and manipulation,
Yeah.
where the art of war is more about self-development,
Mm-hmm.
self-improvement, and self-discipline.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
before we get into it, let me say hello to the couple people that's in the chat. Hello to Feminine Melanin University. Hello to Charles. Hey Nightish. Hey TC. How you doing? Hey the Drip Show. Hey Angel. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Listen, let me give you some brief production notes before we get off into the topic. Anybody that had a moderator wrench and your wrench is taken away, please don't take it personal. Me and Babe been talking about some things, and we are making some changes to how we run our businesses on this platform. So we have taken away all standard wrenches from everybody. The only people that have wrenches on our channels are managing moderator, and they have been approved and validated in a different way. So it's nothing personal. We appreciate everybody. Please make sure you guys are liking the video and sharing it out. And also, please make sure that you guys support on the Cash App. Thank you, Leslie. Appreciate you. $ Butterfly Progressive. And Miss Ocean, do you want to put your Cash App in the chat too?
You know what, Roy? I done forgot my own. I forgot. Hold on. I think it's. Oh no, I remember. There we go.
Okay.
I just put it up there.
You put it on your name? Okay, so let me put the bottom, the headlines on so people can see. Yes. No, you have your IG, not your Cash App up there.
Oh,
Man.
okay. Let me delete that then. Hold on.
Hey, Shaka Kitty. So moving forward, we are going to be becoming more stringent. If you guys did not catch Cellulite podcast show last night about the list of a lot of words that could get you demonetized, please go check that out. We have been doing a deep dive into the TOS and so on and so forth, and we're moving right along. It is the third quarter. Well, it's the final quarter. Actually, it's the fourth quarter, and we getting some things in alignment because we understood the assignment. Yes. But now back to the topic. Honey. The 48 laws of power. Hey, Triggs. Hey, Triggs. The 48 laws are actually Triggs is supposed to be a managing moderator. Hold on one moment, Triggs. Let me fix that for you. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So with 48 laws of power, everybody is so enamored. They're like, oh my God, it's the 48 laws of power. And the 48 laws of power is life. And ha 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 no. Not really. There are key takeaways from the 48 laws of power.
Mm-hmm.
And Forbes board of director, blind founder, and CEO of the compliance search group on LinkedIn did a deep dive into the 10 major lessons that we do learn from the 48 laws of power.
Mm-hmm.
So let's begin. Number 1, use selective honesty and deception to manipulate those around you. Right. It is, and I agree. In my opinion, it's a narc playbook with mostly with a few gems.
He's a dark playbook. Go ahead.
Let's read through the list and then we'll do a conversation about it. Number 2, always say less than necessary and let others talk themselves into revealing their weaknesses. Seems a little sketchy. Always make those above you feel superior and use flattery and praise to gain favor. Never appear too perfect or flawless, as it will create resentment and envy in others. Play on people's need to believe in something and create a cult-like following. Where have we seen that on YouTube? A little bit of everywhere, sure have. Pose as a friend, but work as a spy to gather information and gain the upper hand. Get others to do the work for you and take credit for their achievements. Keep others in suspended terror by cultivating an air of unpredictability and danger. Danger. Talk about danger, I know. Go ahead, though. Create a sense of urgency and desperation to get what you want. Recreate yourself by forging a new identity, one that commands attention and never bores the audience.
Okay.
And again, this is coming from Jack Kelly, Forbes, Board of Directors Blind. I would say he's a man with great power. What are your thoughts on the list? Let's break it down point by point. Let's start at number 1. Go ahead, Lola.
So, use selective honesty and deception to manipulate those around you. I think to the untrained listener or untrained reader, that definitely comes across as narcissistic versus, I guess, artistic. And that's why I would err on the side of, the art of war, which is essentially, in my opinion, the feminine principle. This seems to be the masculine principle because it's about controlling people. When you like selective honesty, right, is essentially understanding your environment, right? And when, like, there's a time and place for everything, right? But when it says deception to manipulate, right, it's like, well, you're not manipulating based on the whatever you're talking about. It's nature, right? You're not like when we manipulate gravity, we're not lying. You see what I'm saying? When we manipulate color, we're not lying. You see what I'm saying? But to use deception in conjunction with selective honesty, yeah, we're not really talking about power. It's another word, and it escapes me right now. This is beyond having, let's say, control over environments, because you don't need to be deceptive to control the thing. You don't necessarily need to lie to control a thing. You can control a thing with honesty, but that's the difference there, between, you know, trying to just be in a position to control versus to have true power, which is controlling, not even controlling, but allowing your will through something else's will to give it to you. You see what I'm saying? Like if I know you like chocolate and I want you to buy from me, right? I might put chocolate in my background, but I'm not manipulating you through lies. You really do like chocolate, and I really do want your attention. So I use chocolate. There's no lie in that. But if I'm deceptive, right, where I put things in the back that look like chocolate, and as soon as I get you here, now I switch it up on you because the deception was the chocolate. You see what I'm saying? Like now we're in different territory. And that's just on the first one. So I understand maybe what it could be on the positive side, but to the untrained ear and or reader, that's going to come across as it's okay to manipulate someone to their detriment. You see what I'm saying? That's not it. Now if we talking about fighting styles, for instance, like, you know, if you a boxer or if you an MMA fighter and you want to talk about boxing styles, okay, I can fit this in and it might make sense. But that's the thing. Everything in life doesn't come down to that type of physicality. You see what I'm saying? Like when you're talking about trying to gain a woman's favor or a man's favor, for that instance, you wouldn't apply fighting styles or concepts that govern fighting styles to your let's say your actions of gaining their favor. Like you wouldn't do that. That doesn't make sense. Again, there's a time and place for everything. But to the untrained reader, that's going to come across a certain way. And I mean, everybody learns through experience. But that's what I'll say about that.
I would say that for point one, use selective honesty and deception to manipulate those around you. That's pimping. It's pimping at its finest. And honestly, it's just lies. Mm-hmm. Use lies and treachery to get what you want. Mm-hmm. And I feel that that is the biggest problem with society today. Everyone would prefer to live a facade. They would prefer to lie to make someone feel that a thing is true. And then when the floor falls out from underneath them, now everybody is in an uproar and it's a kerfuffle because of the lying. And selective honesty, whether you guys want to admit it or not, it's a lie. It's a lie of omission. Mm-hmm. So you're being taught by Robert Kelly to lie, which is very much unfortunate. I mean, Robert Greene, I'm sorry. I like Kelly Greene, so you know, I mixed the two, conflate the two. But let's show some love for the super chat. The Drip Show with the $20 says, we're gonna start this thing off right. Hashtag Drip Nation, hashtag Raw B, Big Raw B, support our own, stay on the neck. Hashtag drips. Thank you.
Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. From my money until we for me. Pocket up full enough money. Grab time money for just a part for me. Like big love on me love money. If you're not time money, your girl want me. Every girl want you, the word I say. Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. From my money until we for me. Pocket up full enough money. Me a what? Me want live pipe too. Me want drive big Benz, ride bike too. Me want pop champagne, wash car too. Pan the hill, me want the big house too. Me no born bad mind, no get me wrong. On the red eye, me have a ambition. Every you dream.
Yes. Like I be over here turned up. That's my whole vibe right there for real. Mel says, be careful where and who you use these laws on. Yes, period. And anything that you have to be careful, that has to come with a disclaimer, again, is to your detriment and not to your benefit. So we already see from the door, Robert Greene is taking you down a horrible path. Hello, YM. Hello, DMO. Love you, love you, love you. Okay. This one, number 2, is it's a tricky point. Always say less than necessary and let others talk themselves into revealing their weaknesses. Now, for that lesson, it's a catch-22 because I do believe in saying less. Y'all know this. Y'all that know me know. I don't say nothing. I be like, oh, all right then. You got it. But it's not about me saying less for others to reveal their weaknesses. It's me saying less because I don't feel the need to validate myself to other people. And I don't seek other people's validation.
Right.
So it's a catch-22 because the reason you're being taught by this book to say less is so that you can make someone else play themselves. But this puts you in a juxtaposition because just like in a game of chess, you only get better by playing a smarter opponent. So if you're in a situation with someone else that also says less, there are no weaknesses revealed. There's nothing revealed. It's just, you know what I'm saying, jockeying for position.
Right.
Go ahead, Lola.
No, I agree with you on that. I think it is a tricky thing. Again, if someone's reading this to learn how to go about life, they're gonna read this, and I mean, some may get it and some won't. But to just be honest, like when I say less, if I've told myself I'm your opponent, right, and I'm trying to, let's say, deal with you from that standpoint, right, I will say less because I'm trying to hear your strategy over giving you my own. However, if I'm in a conversation like we're in right now, and let's say we're in disagreement, I should say less so that I can understand you, and then maybe even see the weakness in my own position to make me stronger. It ain't necessarily about making you weaker. It's about making me stronger. So the positioning from this, I would say I get it in a certain position in life, right? Like if you're in it, like let's suppose you're a prisoner of war. Okay, let's just be honest. You got captured by the Japanese. Okay, shout out to y'all. Okay, you got captured by the Japanese, and they over there and they are torturing you, right? You might want to say less in that situation, right? Or vice versa. In that situation, but if again you're trying to, let's say you're in a panel interview for a job, and you got 7 people in front of you, and they want to see are you a good fit. You might not want to say as less as possible because, like Ross said, people can pick up on when you're being selective. And that is something that a trained ear and eye will pick up on very quickly. And I'm not saying that you're supposed to run your mouth and tell everything. You seem to be not supposed to be a whole bucket out here. But it's like if you're purposely saying less than necessary, you feel me? People have intuition and humans are not that dumb. Like you're supposed to say what you're supposed to say. Now, talking too much is a problem. Talking not enough is a problem. So this is where the issue of balance come in at. But again, what position are you in where you're deploying this rhetoric in terms of how you're applying it to your life? Like I don't want to say less than necessary when I'm talking to my children because they're following me and my example. I don't want to say less than necessary to someone that I'm in a relationship with. I want to be expressive there, right? You see what I'm saying? Like if I'm giving a speech about, what I mean, maybe some very personal traumatic things, you feel me? And I want to connect with people. I might not want to say less than necessary. So there's times to say less, and then there's times to say more. But if you're applying this to life, period, like this is a law, yeah, that's a tricky one right there. It's not really helping you. It's not really helping. That's a tricky one. I will admit that.
Exactly. Now I brought up a terminology when we were talking in the Discord, and it seemed to take the kids at it. They wanted me to break it down in layman's term, but here's the reality.
What you mean?
Homeostasis. Homeostasis is like a problem for people. Is this gonna let me open it up? It's not. Hold on. Let me put us here like this so I could go into the file and pull it up, honey, because my computer be trying to tell y'all all my business. And I like y'all, but I don't like y'all like that. So y'all don't need to know. Don't worry. I said it. So homeostasis is the tendency towards a relatively stable equilibrium between interdependent elements, especially as maintained by physiological processes.
What was the issue?
I mean, the reality is a lot of people maybe are not used to that word. You know, being in the field that I work in, one of the fields that I work in anyway. You know,
it's common. Yeah, right.
so, you know, I'd like to let people understand balance is simply that. Balance and homeostasis is exactly the same thing. And when we're talking about interdependent elements, well, men and women interacting with each other are interdependent elements. When we talk about human beings in relation to environmental situations, that's an interdependent relationship. Even when we're talking about something as basic and banal as these panels are an interdependent situation. Because when you're on the panel, without the chat, there is no need for the panel. Without the panel, there is no need for the chat.
Correct.
When a host drops a link without anybody clicking the link, it's not a panel show, it's a one-person show. So each element is interdependent on one another. Right. And this is why the art of war has always been a very poignant and critical element to my core belief system, because the art of war always speaks to taking the whole. But we will get there, because a lot of people don't even really know the proper way to read the art of war. When Sun Tzu wrote the book, he told y'all to start with the essays. If you don't start with the essays in the art of war, the rest of the book is lost. But we'll get there. Because everybody swears. Anyway, but all right. Always make those above you feel superior and use flattery and praise to gain favor. This is fake. This is fake. I'm from New York. I don't believe in no fake stuff. I don't care if you're above or below me. You're going to get... Thank you, Leslie K. Yes. The system and its parts, absolutely. The tendency towards a relatively stable equilibrium between interdependent elements, yes, especially as maintained by physiological process. Thank you. But, you know, it's fakeness. I'm going to tell you, as a person that deals with all walks of life, people with money, people with power, they can smell fake shit 10 steps away from them.
Yeah.
They always know when someone is jockeying for position. So this lesson is one that is not actually going to gain you advancement, because it's interdependent upon you being a yes man for someone. Which means this flattery and praise is only as good as that person's longevity. Once their expiration is up, so is any perceived power, clout, praise, or favor that you gain from that person. Whereas if you tell somebody that is a superior to you, I use air quotes, about the flaws and the fallacies in what they're doing, and that encourages them to be a better person, you gain more favor in the long run, because they know you're being a genuine person and you actually care for them, as opposed to caring about the things that they have or the things that they could do for you. Lola, go ahead.
I agree. Now, I would add that you don't have to make your superiors feel superior to you, and that's a subtle flaw in that rhetoric. They are superior to you, and human beings don't need to be coaxed into feeling superior, especially when they're in superior positioning. Like, they are well aware of that, so you don't need to gain favor to help them feel more superior than you. If we're talking about like gaining power, right? You don't gain power over your superiors because you make them feel flattered, and they like the flattery. Like, that doesn't gain you power. Like you said, in reality, it gains you a position under them, not even secured. You see what I'm saying? Versus someone that they actually feel respect for. And it's not to say people don't respect people that give them a compliment, but I would go as far as to say, if you really want to exercise power, right? It's like, what do you need the power to do? You see what I'm saying? Like, we use power for things, right? So what do you want power to do? So I would have to understand that. Now, if you're in a work environment and you say, well, I want power so that I can, make decisions over the people that have, power over me, or let's say positioning over me. Well, you're trying to get where they're at and above. So in reality, like, that necessitates you to be more than somebody who is buddy with people. You have to prove that you're superior to your superiors. That's what that is. Now, I would say that you gaining favor with those equal on in a lateral position to you and under you would get you further than trying to pull your way up with flattery versus someone else pushing you up because they like their interaction with you and you make them feel better as a person or as a worker or whatever, just by being around you. I know for me, I've had managers that I absolutely love to work under because they knew how to make me understand my work. And even though they were superior to me, I never felt like they seen me as inferior, right? Like, that's why I promoted them even in my own workplace. Like, I would say, hey, I want that person doing that for me. I want that person to have that position because I like how they do what they do, versus though that individual trying to climb the political ladder and get up the ladder over their superiors on their own merit of making sure everybody likes them. So yeah, I would argue just the opposite in that example right there, in terms of power, because again, the question is, what are you trying to get the power to do? Like what's the to do part? Like, what do you need it for? What's the end result? So yeah.
I would agree. I would agree with what you had to say. Oh, I'm the only one who voted for the 48 laws. Disrespectful. See, that's because you came late. That's because you came late. And no, I haven't read the book yet. Give me a free. I'm not playing. With Christopher J. Ooh, the drip show. Thank you for the $4.99. He said, we don't respect the yes man. Sit your $5 butt down before I make change. Yes. Thank you very much for the support. Okay, number 4. This is a misnomer to me. Never appear too perfect or flawless, as it will create resentment and envy in others. Can we be real for a moment? Perfection is a myth. Sorry, y'all. The when I'm doing Streamlabs directly, y'all will hear a different sound every time I get a super chat, and it's played in my ear, and it's trying to throw me off. But I'm trying to stay on track. But perfection is a myth. In order to be perfect, that would mean you would have to have a complete absence of mistakes. No one has a complete absence of mistakes. So never appearing too perfect or flawless to create resentment and envy in others. Child, please, this is a problem. Y'all, so many people are worried about creating resentment or envy in others. What does it matter? If you are who you are, somebody's always going to view you as perfect, whether you are or not. I'm going to tell you, for me personally, people are always like, oh, you think this, and oh, you think that. I'll be like, word? I do. When they haven't had a conversation with me. Everybody has their challenges, just everybody doesn't look like what they're going through.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to make myself look like what I'm going through, or make myself be emotional or neurotic or unstable and unbalanced to make somebody else feel better. That's insanity. And this is teaching you to minimize yourself. Minimize yourself. Have less self-worth. Put less effort into your appearance. Put less effort into the way you present or your affect, because God forbid somebody else has a problem with who you are. So to me, the 48 laws of power is not really power at all.
Well, if you talking about if you're talking about your interactions with an egotistical driven person, right? This would make sense. If you don't want to upset them, then hide who you really are. If your regular is better than their best efforts, make sure you're lesser than them, right? But again, this is like you're trying to gain power from pulling up versus being pushed up. You see what I'm saying? Like it's a different way you climb the ladder. So like if you're if let's say you're in your family, right, and you guys are, I don't know, at a game park, and you're, playing a game, and the object of the game is to have fun with each other, right? But you're trying to play the power game, and so you're trying to pretend like you're not number one, right? And so you purposely lose and make someone else win. Like unless you're trying to placate to their ego, the point is for everyone to try their best. You're missing the point. However, if you're a part of let's say a platoon, and you have an egotistical captain, and he know how to fight, and he feel like he the best fighter, and he training y'all, but he don't know how to do a particular maneuver, and you know how to do it better than him. If you don't want to anger him, sure, dumb yourself down. But that's playing a slippery slope of politics in terms of power. Dumb yourself down so no one will get jealous of you. I don't know if that's playing the game of power or not. Now, obviously, if you're in a situation where you can't afford to make enemies, you might not want to literally just make enemies. But it's kind of hard not to make enemies when sometimes people will be jealous simply because they're not you. You don't have to do anything for jealousy to ensure. Sometimes people are jealous because you have an absence of something that they have a presence with that they don't want. Ain't nothing you can do about that. That causes jealousy. So again, slippery slope of an idea when read versus explained. And I'm sure nobody was out here explaining that when that was written.
I would have to agree. Like, bruh, it speaks to weaknesses. Hey, Drip. The drip show, drip, 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 drip. Yes, a yes ma'am is a no ma'am in hiding. Facts.
What a yes ma'am is a no. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I cannot. Okay. Play on people's need to believe in something and create a cult like following. Let's get into it. There's a lot of people on social media in particular that play on people's need to belong. I want to be somebody so bad. And people be doing a little bit of anything. They do anything for coke. Like, it's an adrenaline rush. It's a dopamine fix. Y'all are mainlining the cook crack that people spew out to you. But this is not power. The only cults that I have heard of, I have not heard of any cults that have been a great, except for maybe L. Ron Hubbard and Dianetics. And even the Scientologists will tell you there is some problems with it. Okay, Jim Jones had them people drinking Kool-Aid. Hey Simon, how you doing? Much love. Jim Jones had y'all drinking Kool-Aid. Okay. Now I did cover it before. I don't know if I might cover it on Rumble. But if you sit there and you watch the footage and the news clips from these cults and these settings, the Nature Boy situation, you guys know giving. What's that other one?
Oh,
Brother Polite and them over there. Y'all know what that was.
With the guy that he was following. I forgot his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So y'all following behind anybody because there's a lack of leaders. Which is why this book will never be one that I live by. I might take a morsel, but the vast majority of this book gets spit out into the trash. Because, like, what? I'm going to tell you what. I don't care how famous. Hey, Rush, I don't care how famous I get. I don't care if people love me, like me, or hate me. Don't y'all be don't be following me. When you see me in the street, a quick little salute, a little, you know what I'm saying, butterflies, we good. We good. Give me 7 to 10 feet. I keep your distance. Like that cult like stuff is very weird to me. What are your thoughts?
You know what, and this isn't pushback per se, but it is to say that in that framework, create a cult like environment, right? The cult like environment is to create an addiction factor, and an addiction factor to your betterment and their to their downfall, because again we're talking about the exertion of power over people, at least in these examples. So that's what I see there. However, if, like, okay, let's take you and your butterflies, right? It is a cult like following, right? Because you have people that understand that what certain symbols mean, and like what they do in other environments versus this environment. Like, it's not a cult environment to the detriment or to the power over them. That's not what that is. You see what I'm saying? Cult like followings come sometimes when people just are into whatever, like for instance the Umar Johnson cult. That's not a cult that anybody per se owns or is inside of, but it's a cult where you have people that get together and they just like to sit and they're addicted to talking about things around Umar Johnson. Like, it's a weird phenomenon, but it is by definition a cult. And then you have cults like, what Brother Polite was in with this guy that was practicing things that we're not going to talk about. So there's a difference in terms of the reasoning behind the cult. But I mean, at the end of the day, I wouldn't suggest that someone purposely, for power reasons, create a cult, because again, you can do that. Don't get me wrong. If you want to exert control, I don't like saying power. You want to exert control over people and use them. Yeah, this is a great way to do that. Create an addiction factor with them and to use them for what you can use them for, and make sure that it's ongoing. Sure, do that, but there's consequences to that as well. Like, it's not a long-lived situation. Like, you can't do that forever. As they say, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. It's only a matter of time before your power is stripped from you in that framework.
Yes. Now Simon asked from the chat, "What's a cult?"
Oh my
A
God.
cult. Okay. No, it's good because there may be people that are watching the show that don't know. So it's good to explain.
Okay.
A cult is a system of religious veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object. A relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister. Misplaced or excessive admiration for a particular person or thing. And this is the one that the 48 laws of power is directing you to. Obsession with, fixation on, mania for, passion for, idolization of.
Right.
Y'all are idolizing people because y'all are following the 48 laws of power. So I'm going to tell you, when people have that level of obsessiveness, excessiveness, mania, and admiration for, the environment in the air becomes a little bit untenable. Because this is when you have to be afraid to walk outside of your house. This is when you need bodyguards and securities. This is when people will, if you guys ever watched Inside Out, right? It's a cute little cartoon from Pixar. It talks about children psychology. It breaks down like their developing mind and stages and so on and so forth. But there's this part in Riley's head in the wonderland of her islands, a boyfriend island, where the boyfriend is like, "I'll die for Riley." And there's like 150 million of them, and he keeps replicating, and that's all they say. "I'll die for Riley." So, that's the level of cult like admiration the 48 laws of power is directing you to. This is very detrimental because, again, this is not about the edification of self, which is where the true power lies. I'm a mom, so whatever. I'm gonna constantly give y'all kid reference movies, whatever. Monkey King. If you guys haven't watched it on Netflix, if you have children or even if you're adult by yourself, watch the damn movie. It's a pretty good movie.
Mm-hmm.
The Monkey King was such an egomaniac. He was a narcissist. You know, he was born out of a rock. He was left to fend for himself. He didn't have any family. The monkeys that were in the area thought he was like weird and outcast. He had superpowers. He could go in the ocean, get a magic stick. The stick does all type of stuff, whatever. So he was like, I'm the demon slayer. Blah, blah, blah. I'm everything, everything. So he even tried it with Buddha, right? And he was in Buddha's palm. He's like, I'm so great that I'm a match and a rival for you. I can go against you. So Buddha was like, all right, go to the edge of the universe, come back. He thought he did that. He just made it to Buddha's finger. So for that great exertion of egomania, Buddha put him inside of a rock again, left him there for 5,000 years.
Mm.
The only way to overcome egomania is ego strength balance. And you guys know I'm always talking about that because that's a really important principle in psychology that is overlooked. You have to be able to operate within your wise mind. You have a wise mind, which is pulling from the rational mind and the emotional mind. Existing in either mindset too long is of a detriment. This is when we start seeing mental disorders and, you know what I'm saying, the DSM. And if you guys go to therapy, which I know a lot of people don't, you should. One of the best ways that therapists teach people how to be well adjusted is DBT therapy. What they're teaching you is to pull from both, because everything in your mind, your super ego, your ego, and your id, they're all valid.
Mm-hmm.
But to operate healthily, you have to know when to and when not to.
Mm-hmm.
But let me show some love for the super chat, and then I'm gonna let you speak, Lola. Hold on. Through the Fire podcast with the $20 says, hey, Robbie, you coming to the TMBR meetup? Miss Oshun, I'm digging the hoop, earrings, giving salt and pepper vibes. Listen, you know, hi, Dr. Steele. I'm a butterfly. You never know where I might show up. I might show up. Well, y'all see me when y'all see me, but let me show some love for the super chat.
Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. From a money hunting, wait for me. Pocket of full and of money. Grab time money for just a call for me. Like bitch love money, me love money. If you're not have money, your girl want me. Every girl want hear the word I say. What? Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. From a money hunting, wait for me. Pocket of full and of money. Me a what? Me want live pipe too. Me want drive big Benz, ride bike too. Me want pop champagne, wash car too. Pon the hill, me want the big house too. Me no born bad mind, no get me wrong. On the red eye, me have a ambition. Every youth dream.
I like that.
Thank you. But go ahead, Lola. Weigh in on number 5.
Okay, let me see it again real quick.
Absolutely.
Okay, so play on people's need to believe in something. Again, what is your outcome, right? If your outcome is to get a husband, if you play on a man's need to have a wife, and that's not really what your true intentions are, again, it's only a matter of time before that power of deception is going to dissipate, because the way life is, and it's this verse in the Bible that talks about building 2 traps, right? And in occultism, it's about essentially the same thing, but it's said, well, whatever magic you do, it runs in a circle. So be careful what you put out there on other people, because it runs in a circle. That's why people like sometimes don't want to do rituals for themselves and stuff like that. Like, you got to be careful out here. So if you're going to play on somebody's belief system and it's not true, again, this isn't power. You're exercising control, but you don't really have power over them, because the minute they understand is the minute your power is gone. You don't actually have true power. You have a sense of power over them because you're gaining from them in some way, right? But truly, you don't have true power. No, and I think we'll go through, the other stuff, and I'll hold some of my commentary on that. But yeah, I don't. Again, it can work, but it's very, let's say, it's a very small window of opportunities in life where you actually will play on somebody's belief, and then that work out in the long run for you. It's like, in terms of power, very small, like for instance, if you do role playing with your spouse, you want him to really believe that you really that person that he's believing that you being, right. That might work out for you in the long run, but that's not a game of power. That's not what that is. Like, truly, that's not a game of power. Even BDSM, it's not really a game of power. People that want to be under submission, they're in the power position, and it's a strange thing. You're not in no power over someone. The second they don't want you in that position is the second you ain't there. So it's like, understanding what true power is really the first law. And I'm surprised that wasn't stated inside the list or inside of the book. Honestly, understanding what power truly is before you try to exert it on somebody, or make this rhetoric something that you apply to common everyday life situations versus warfare. Like, if you in the armed forces, you might want to play on people's belief that you in the field when you actually up in the mountains somewhere. You might want to do that in that situation, but outside of that, that's not going to help you. So I mean, it might help you in the short term if you're a narcissist, or if you're a big, tech company and you're trying to play on people's beliefs that, they're going to get healed or something. Because truth is, you want them to keep, that belief, because you keep money in it, get money off of it. But at some point, people, they wise up. Like you said, everybody isn't going to keep with that. They're going to catch on to shit. So again, that power, that perceived power, it's not really power, and it's short-lived, even if it was perceived.
You know what I find very interesting about Robert Greene? So first of all, for these 48 laws of power, with all the money in the world, his current net worth is reported to be $7 million. But he's also a Zen Buddhist. So these 48 laws of power, in fact, are in confliction with Buddhism. That's the thing that makes it even crazier. He has wrote a book to teach you to do things that is in opposition to the life that he lives. And funnily enough, he was born to Jewish parents. So he was born Jewish, converted to Buddhism. He's 64. He lives out in Cali. He's made $7 million off this book, $7 million. And I know, to those of us that are aspiring to become millionaires, that seems like, wow, $7 million. But when we're talking about power, the power diagram in America, in actual wealth, that's a really nominal number. People that are wealthy can spend $7 million in 1 quarter.
I know somebody about to finish spending $7 million, and they still asking for more money. Like, that's how they poor. Like I know some people. Okay, yeah.
You buy a house. Like me and Bay, we be looking at these, these architectural videos and stuff like that. There is residences in Dubai that are going for $20 million. He doesn't even have enough money to buy a waterfront condo in Dubai. So you really have to consider the source. Anyway, let's move on, because you know what I'm saying. Go deep into Robert Greene, because this is a person that everybody following. Pose as a friend, but work as a spy to gather information and gain the upper hand. I know quite a few people that do that, and those people always wind up alone at the end of it all. So is it long-term power? And the information that you're gathering and being a spy, is the information that you're gathering information that is viable information, that is worthy information, that is information that's going to actually hurt your opponent? Or is it something to make you feel like you have the upper hand when really you've been given dust and air.
I think that okay. I think, and if I'm correct, these advices essentially, like, and I keep coming back to it subtly, that it works when it comes to open warfare, like military strategy, but it doesn't work outside of the military. Like right now, if you go to if you become an op and you go to your enemy's camp and you say, hey, I'm a straggler, I hate these people, da 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 da, and you become a spy there, right? You're gaining you're not even gaining power by doing that. You're giving power to the power structure you represent. That's not your power. So it's like that makes sense in open warfare, sure. Like I was on a panel earlier with people that were saying, I know what warfare is about. Yeah, and no. Like you're representing a power structure that no matter what power you think you have, it's not yours. You don't own it. You don't really exert it. So this is a perceived power when people take that rhetoric and say, well, when I don't like somebody, I'm gonna pretend to be their friend, and I'm gonna pretend to basically be an op. And you think for some reason that intuition is fake. People not going to be able to pick up on that. This right here, it shows that whoever said that is not trying to help you through life. They're trying to help you through, like, I don't know, the next battle, literally out in the field. You mean, yeah, like if you in Fallujah, that might make sense. But if you ain't in Fallujah and you ain't in the military and you ain't active duty, like this right here is gonna get you hemmed up. I'm telling you that. That's not real power. You ain't gonna be powerful like with that. Like no, you're gonna end up you're gonna end up on the floor somewhere if somebody's nice.
Child, listen, sippy pacum parabellum. A lot of people don't really understand that. They don't, because everybody thinks that they're tough. They think they're a tough guy. Oh, I'm a tough guy. And I could do this and I could do that, and I'd rather be number what would they say? I'd rather be number 2 than number 7. What? You don't shut your goofy.
You heard that. I'd rather be number 2 to my op than number 7 to the person that's fighting beside me. Right. Yeah, that right there. That's that now that right there is a prime example of someone that has not understood war strategy. One, it's a self delusion. One, and then two, it's being critical of your own side to the point where you're now your own op. So you don't even have to go to your enemy side. You are actually the op for your enemy in your own camp. Like this is the issue. So I don't like I hear and I don't hear. But at the end of the day, this is not power. You're not powerful because you have said, well, look, I'd rather be the white man's anything than the black woman or the black man's anything. Like that's not power. You just surrendered power. At the end of the day, if you don't see yourself as being a part of whatever group that you're a part of, right? Again, that group exerts power. You're part of the power system. If you feel like that power system doesn't represent you, essentially you are alone. And either you're going to be for the power system that represents you, or you're going to be basically a slave to somebody else's power system. That's how that's going to work. So, again, not knowing what true power is and taking military strategy and trying to apply it to anything outside of that without proper, let's say, like you said, homeostasis and balance within yourself, this is where we start to break down as individuals and then in the larger context of community.
Man, listen, a lot of people be having these conversations, and in my head daily, I am just like, STFU. Like, please. Because all of yous that, hey, love who you love, that's cool or whatever. But if we're talking about power, when we are blending elements, right? how's the best way to put this? Because everybody keeps telling me use layman's terms, and it's really hard for me. But I'm working on it. Okay, we're gonna use vodka. If I pour you a shot of vodka, right, and then I take another shot of vodka, and I mix it together, it's just gonna be a double shot. It's gonna be extra strong. You're gonna be like, whoo, wait a minute, whoo. But if I pour you a shot of vodka, and then I tell you I pour you another shot of vodka, but I pour water, it's gonna be diluted by half. It's gonna be weaker.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing comes to genotypes in race relations. There is a reason the darkest skin and the whitest skin come from the same genotype. And it's found in the same place on the continent of Africa. You don't have to take my word for it. Look it up.
Mm-hmm.
The whitest albino and the darkest human being all come from Africa. When we look at the lack or the absence of melanin in other races, genotypes, that is a genetic anomaly. You actually need melanin in order to function and process the vitamins that you gain from being outside in the sun. So that's first and foremost. But I don't want to really get into the whole, anthology of why these race conversations y'all have are just inadequate at best. But when we're talking about the social construct of race and relations and what have you, we have a small group.
Yeah.
On this continent. But in the global economy, persons of colors are like 85 to 90% of the global presence. It's just here in America.
Yeah.
Where the palest of them are the majority. So when y'all have these type of conversations, it speaks to self-hatred. You hate yourself because you have been psychologically conditioned like a Pavlovian dog to hate the skin you're in. And the epigenesis of it is the transatlantic slave trade. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
But we're not having a historical lesson today. We're going to do that on Saturday when we talk about white women's role in the slave trade. We're about to elucidate some stuff for y'all. Illuminate.
But bro, let me add this, right? So I remember when I was watching Spike Lee's movie Malcolm X, and they were talking about the problem with Malcolm X, right? And the issue was the power that he had. Now, he himself didn't he didn't abide by these laws that we talk about today. The power he had that was so dangerous was that everybody wanted to be underneath of him. Like there was a pure desire to be told what to do by him, to represent what he wants and what he's fighting for, right? And he didn't have to, as they say, make people like climb the political ladder to make people feel good about themselves, or none of that. You see what I'm saying? He was a very genuine and open person. He talked a lot, like seriously. But everybody loved him. And that was the power that he had that other people didn't have. And that's why they said too many people he has power over. Not because he's trying to control them, not at all, but because of the love they had for him. So this is a different side of power. You see what I'm saying? At least perceived power. Because he didn't control anything. He wasn't trying to gain power over them to get something from them for his own benefit. Like he wasn't trying to conquer his own people. That's not what that is. But he was essentially deleted because of the power that he possessed that people were so afraid of. I remember I seen that movie, right? But I didn't really understand it until I came into the understanding of power from, let's say, a feminine perspective. Meaning, like many years ago, when I heard the story of the Orisha Oshun and what power meant, right? Like what it truly meant when it talked about the creation of the world and the god of war, which is Ogun. or the god of tool making, which is Ogun, the god of iron. And how when he went rogue, right, all the other gods or Orisha, however you want to say it, they went to exert power over him. They tried to plead with him. They tried to lure him. They tried to argue with him. They tried to exert force over him, but he was not to be conquered whatsoever. And so, essentially, the highest deity, or God rather, said, I want the weakest of you to go and conquer him. And everybody was like, are you crazy? And so the weakest of them was the perceived female that was the most feminine, the most soft, the most daintiest one with the smallest voice. And so the issue there is that she goes and she doesn't try to do anything with him. In fact, she didn't say nothing to him. And she uses who she is, her beauty, her love for singing, her love for rivers, her love for making things work together, clearing rivers out. Like, she used her feminine wiles that had nothing to do with him to conquer him. And she didn't actually try. Everyone else was like hard pressed trying to get this God to like do right, but she didn't do anything. Instead, he came to her, and she was the one who brought him back to essentially the world of human beings, and he was thus conquered. But when I seen that story, I realized that, control and power isn't always brute force. It isn't always like a manipulation in terms of trying to get someone to do something so that you can gain, or they can, like, it's not always that. Sometimes, like you began to say earlier, it's about self-cultivation. When you make yourself attractive, people want to follow. You don't have to force them to get in line. They're going to line up on their own. Like, that's the difference. Like, you spend more energy trying to force people to do something and manipulate them and keep your lives straight than you do if you just make it an environment that they just want to be in, like that they just want to do. So, I know we talk a lot about male and female dynamics in terms of like who has power, but truth be told, that the power dynamic is on both sides there. And people just don't want to admit that because they want to seem, let's say, more superior. But again, it's the false sense of power and superiority, and it's short-lived. Like, no relationship lasts under that. Like, we just don't have one to date that lasts that long. But this is where the lesson comes in, that when it comes to deception and making people believe something that's there that's not really there. You don't have to do that to exercise, let's say, the manipulation of forces, like, so that people will do the things that you want them to do. Like, if I want you to calm down, I might have to manipulate my own emotions so that you can calm down. If I want you to, offer me something, right, I might have to present myself as being needy. That doesn't mean that I'm less powerful or I'm poor. It just means I want something from you, so I'm not going to present as if I don't need you. Like, that's thinking right there, right? But it's manipulation, but not manipulation from the sense of deception. Not manipulation from the sense of trying to create a disharmony in someone else so that you can be harmonious. Like, that's not what that is. So that's why I said earlier, I think somebody mentioned it in the chat about the femininity and masculinity piece I mentioned. I think that the art of war is explaining power from a feminine perspective versus the 48 laws of power is steeped in masculine thinking, straight line thinking, where there's no curvature to it. Like, you can't bend it, and if you try to bend it, it's just going to break. It's just going to break.
And I disagree with you. I think that the 48 laws of power have a lot of flexibility and bendability. I think it's very much a slippery slope, because it bends morality. Whereas the art of war is more morality based. Now, as to what you were saying about the interdependent needs of relationships, and like why these people lose their salad when they're talking about relationships, is I think the most basic way to discuss relationships is one person is the head and the other person is the neck. The head cannot exist without the neck. The neck has no purpose without the head. So And these things have to submit to each other to cohesively be able to lead the body.
Right.
And in this particular community, there are no morals. Let's just call it what it is. Let's rip the band-aid off and put it on the table. There are no morals. And it saddens me because I see a lot of women that lose their stuff. Oh, well, he said blah blah blah. So I'm gonna turn up. But then, there were other people like, yeah, because Raw don't really be turning up unless you really talk about like her kids or something like that. What up, Ashton? And it's true. I'm not gonna meet your energy because I understand how energy works. A lot of people think if you match energy, right, you're going to cancel the energy out. That is not how energy transfers. If you match energy, the energies are going to just continue to feed each other until they build and grow and then implode or explode. That's how energy works. The energy has to be displaced somewhere to simmer down. So the best way to deal with people when they are unruly or whatever, for me, is to disarm. And that was, I got a little pushback about that, and that's cool. I get it, but it works. It's a self-evident truth. I could be dead in the middle of an argument with someone and I'll throw a joke or I'll say something that they weren't expected. Do you need a hug? Do you need the emotional support? And then the whole energy is reset. And when
see, bro. Now see, usually when you say that, the first thing people say is, she's being triggering, and that's when they try to like get more, and like you'll calm down more, and then they'll still say, oh, you trying to be aggressive, and then they go get more, and it's like,
she's being disingenuous. No, I'm being very genuine. You're being insane right now. So if I, as a woman rested in my femininity, if I match your insanity, what is gained? Nothing. Because if you like, and again, I don't want anybody to get anything twisted. There was a point when I actively matched energy. But I had to sit back and observe. And this is the thing that a lot of people don't do. And these panel discussions and these spaces and just life in general afford you the opportunity all the time, especially when you're constantly recording, to sit back and observe. I recommend to everybody, go back, watch the panels that you sit on, read the chats. If you're a content creator, you do content, go back and watch your content. Really look at the message you are trying to deliver and versus the message that you actually deliver. Hi, Dr. Nikki. Hey, babe. The message you're trying to deliver versus the message that is actually delivered. If there's a disconnect between what you were trying to convey and what you actually convey, that's room to grow. And I could tell you, for me, in doing that and doing so, it changed the landscape of how I navigated people, places, and spaces. This was not an overnight journey. This was a journey that took about a good 5 to 6 years. Because at first, most people are just vehemently in denial. I said what I said, and I cooked they butts, and I ate. Hey, the voice of Venus. Hey, LV. I cook and I ate. Did you? Yeah, just keeping it real, because if nobody left actually hearing you,
right,
not listening to the words coming out of your mouth, but hearing the message that you were trying to convey, you didn't eat at all.
Right. And I think that's what's happened. That's what happened to me earlier, which is the reason why I didn't respond when people were being, well, I didn't respond each time somebody was being inflammatory, because I understand that everyone can see it. I don't have to always point that out. But at the same time, it's like if I responded to every single insult, right, then I wouldn't be able to stand on my square. And if somebody feels like, I got my point across, I don't respect her because she's a woman, I don't have to talk to her, because I've been very respectful on panels and spoke to, let's say, men mostly, and they've responded very disrespectfully back or dismissive simply because I'm a woman, right? However, I don't get upset at that, because I know that they're dealing with something. That's not nothing personal. I didn't create that energy in their life. However, there's too many men out here that's interested in having an intellectual conversation, or let's just say a shoot the breeze conversation with a woman that they actually can connect with, at least on that level. Some men don't want to connect to women. Sometimes they just want to connect to just men and whatnot. I don't have nothing to do with it. But I'm not going to get us so emotionally moved on that. Now, if somebody was to come and start screaming on me, right, and start calling me out my name and stuff like that, I guess the position I would play is, do I want to make an example out of them? Or do I want to, like you said, disseminate that energy? You see what I'm saying? Sometimes disseminating the energy just means dropping. Sometimes disseminating the energy means engaging, depending on the situation. But you kind of have to, you kind of have to know your limits there, because, as they say, pearls and swine, pearls and swine. Don't waste your time. But I'm not trying to exert power over people per se when I'm trying to circumvent the heightened emotionalism. That's not what I'm trying to do. Now sometimes I am trying to exert, let's say, control over a conversation. Like if someone that tells me, hey, I'm talking, right? And I say, okay. And so they speak, and I let them speak uninterrupted. And then when I wait and I go back to talk, and they go to interrupt me, right? Like now I can get ignorant with you and teach you, hey, don't lie to me. If you want me to respect you, you will respect me, or else you're gonna have to fight for your respect. One of the two. And most people like it when they don't have to fight for their respect. Most people, you see what I'm saying? Most people don't like to have to fight for respect. So as much as people say, well, men want respect, you want respect, but you want it the nice way. So you have to actually give too. So that's what I'm saying. Like power and control is not just about having it. You have to actually yield too. Like it's not just about just getting people to do stuff. There's a part of you that needs to be, cultivated and changed. And so that you can carry on. Because I'm be honest with you, the most powerful people are the people like the guy that we was talking about here from Forbes, somebody who went through stuff and had to come out the other end and realize that no matter how much money I'm worth, peace is worth more. No matter how much influence I have, if I don't have good relationships with the people closest to me, it doesn't matter. You see what I'm saying? Like there's a lot, and these people are very powerful. You see what I'm saying? Like even for instance, Trump, he's very powerful. You see what I'm saying? But even he knows he wouldn't be where he's at if he wasn't charismatic in the way that he feels he's charismatic. Like he tends to always try to, put this air of like, just one-on-one shoot the breeze type of conversations, even when it's very like professionally based, and he shouldn't be speaking like they're off the cuff. Like he does that because he knows that when he connects with people in that way, people feel him more, and he gets to basically be more of himself. But when he gets in places where people are using certain language based on the environment, he kind of like he's not good at that. So, like he tries to control the conversation by keeping himself in the likable position versus the most intellectual position. He just doesn't do that. But he knows without that likability, his control or power over whatever industry he's in, okay, he has a couple of them, it would be nothing. Like it really would be nothing. So I mean, I don't get me wrong, I'm not about to do what Donald Trump does. But that's an avenue of power and or control. But it's not for everybody. Like if you try to do what Trump do in your regular everyday life at work, I mean, I don't know if you're gonna have a job. But see, that's what I'm saying. He can do that. But I can't apply that law of quote unquote power in my life. That's not gonna work. And if I think it is, I mean, you know, everybody gonna learn, like I said. But I like personally, I like movies about power a lot. I do like any movie about power and like any movie about that. I'm just all for it. I like sitting down thinking about, you know, movies. I like long movies when it comes to power. And it's just so interesting to me because there's so many dimensions to power. But people not thinking about that because everybody's thinking about, well, not everyone, but certain people who's trying to actively get power. They're thinking about how can they step on someone else to get it versus how can they position themselves that they will be propelled by other people in these powerful positions. You see what I'm saying? Like, I think Barack was very powerful when he was during his presidency, not because he didn't have enough pushback, but because he had so many people propelling him. Like that's where I think that power came from personally for him, because I know a lot of people in his position didn't make it. Okay. But he did, and I think it had more to do with not so much what he was able to control in terms of, you know, making sure like he had more money than some other entity or person or country. No, it was his likability that gave him the power that he had. He could tour the world and the whole world feel like he's their president. That's power. But it's not power because he's trying to exert force over people and force them to do stuff and deceive them into thinking some shit so that he can get some shit. Like that's not what that was. But I'm not saying I agree with his politics all the way before somebody say something. But I recognize what I recognize. I'll say that.
Exactly. Listen, everybody in the chat, again, if you guys are coming in late, we are making updates to how we run this business on YouTube. Please be mindful of the language in the chat. No curse words. Please use stunning variation, but even with the variations,
alternative language.
Yes, alternative language. We appreciate you. Thank you. But you know, for me, politicians' power is misdirection.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Houdini. I love Houdini. I think that is the greatest trick that he taught the world. Mm-hmm. They get you looking over here. Meanwhile, over here, they're doing a whole bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean,
misdirection. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get deeper into that conversation when we have our show on Saturday. But let's wrap up these last four all in one so that we could get into the art of war. Because a portion of
talking to?
I don't know.
Okay.
A portion we are focused here. We're here. We're keeping the energy right here. See, ladies, just like that. That's how y'all do it. Because what you said about the transference of power, mm-hmm. It is so relative to the art of war. But I don't want to just jump over there. I want to wrap up this this one first. But that's where we're going to start when we get to the art of war. Okay, so let's go ahead and wrap up these four. Dr. Nick said that came from Star Wars Jedi Madrid.
Oh, God. Oh, goodness gracious.
No. The transference of power. Yes. Mm-hmm. But okay, so these four right here, this is just first of all, you don't have power if you are getting other people to do the work for you and taking their achievements. This is how mutinies are achieved. Okay. Mm. People will throw you over the boat. It slice you up. They'll make you look like what is it? Hibachi. Stop it. Keeping others suspended in terror by cultivating an air of unpredictability and danger. Boy, bye. If you don't shut your silly self up, first of all, that's you want to have power out of respect, not fear.
Right.
Because if somebody is afraid, they're completely unpredictable. You don't know what they're going to do.
Correct.
Creating a sense of urgency and desperation. Try it again. Try it again. Y'all see what happened with that toilet paper? They made y'all feel like y'all they wasn't going to have no toilet paper in the world. Honey, please, you know what I knew when they was telling yo was going to run out of toilet paper? I know that I come from a family that is, you know what I'm saying, long time, been in the woods. Shout out to the Blackfoot tribes, okay? and the southern slaves. Okay, y'all better know how to go in y'all bathrooms, in your closets. Y'all know y'all got y'all linen closet. Y'all got 50, 100 million, 11 towels. Okay, cut them towels up into some rags, make it do what it do. Use your washing machine. They never told you that laundry detergent was going out of style. Okay, the bleach. Now the bleach, they did hide the bleach on you, but there was alternatives to the bleach too. But that laundry detergent, honey, y'all can wash, reuse, and repeat. What you think they used to put babies in? They used to chop down all the trees in the rainforest to make sure everybody had Pampers. They took some cloth, wrapped some towels around them babies' booties, and said, "Get it how you live it, get it how you live it," and called it a day. Real power is being able to pivot. So this again is another lie. Recreate yourself by forging a new identity. Let me tell you what. You was who you was when you got here. And no matter no matter how you try to change the packaging, right? If you don't have control of yourself, there's always going to be somebody that knows how to rip at the wrapping and make the jack come right out of the box. Get into it. Go ahead, Lola. Give me your thoughts, your synopsis of these last four.
I'll say this. I think all of them can be coded under what the guy said in terms of manipulation and deception. Like all of them literally have something to do with that. The getting people to do the work for you and then taking credit. People will do work for you because they really like you and admire you on some true stuff. But for you to turn around and say, take the credit again, how long do you think that kind of power is going to last? How long? You see how long it took for Black people to keep getting people, other groups taking credit for our historical achievements, putting their face on our stuff. And you see how long that lasted, right? Now that power is gone. And it's still fizzling out. The whole idea about unpredictability and danger, right? Keeping people like in the state of like fear, right? Again, that works in warfare. If you are in, let's say, hand-to-hand combat, you might want people to always be in a state of unpredictability because that's the best way to win in hand-to-hand combat. I've been told by martial artists that when women fight, it's different than how men fight because men are more predictable in how they fight versus women. You don't know which direction and angle it's coming from, and it's going to come from a lot of different ones. So it's hard to like defend against that versus someone that you know is going to throw either uppercut, a jab, or a straight punch. Like, you know, those are the three. So you can prepare for that, but you can't prepare for something that's wild. So again, hand-to-hand combat, sure, but regular life, you're gonna get you listen, you ain't about to prosper out here, let alone for a long time. And again, it still comes under that number 8 and 9 seems to be kind of like the same for me, just different verbiage. Now number 10 is interesting, where it says recreate yourself by forging a new identity. I don't really understand how that relates to true power of not walking in your true identity. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I'll be honest with you, remember the movie, and again, I'm a mom, The Little Mermaid. She wasn't walking in her true power. You see, she thought she had power because, you know what I mean, she had 2 legs, but she wasn't walking in her true power. When them legs got cut and it went back to that fin, then she had her true power. You see what I'm saying? But that's because she was in her true identity, not in an identity that was faking people out to make them think she was something that she wasn't, so that she could get close to someone because she wanted something from them. Like, that's not what that is. So faking your identity is like, listen, at some point you're going to have to let that face go and let your head down. And when you do that, somebody going to see the real you, and then the power that you think you have is going to literally dissipate as fast as it came, if not faster. So, you know, I mean, I'll be honest with you, there's a few points in there that I would say, yeah, when it comes to combat and warfare, yeah, that's the best way to win. You see what I'm saying? These are good strategies, right? But when it comes to actual life, life is a matter of a shade of gray. not black or white. It's very few instances where it's going to be black or white. Very few. Like if we can say two things can be true at the same time, let's be honest. So yeah, there's some, like you said, there's some places we can use this, right? But it's very few. And I think at the time it was written, it wasn't written for your every average everyday lay person. It was written for people that may have military background, that may be in positions where they are like they're in politics, where they're dealing with other governments that have, on their own militaries, and they're doing that sort of thing, right? But in everyday life, concepts and let's say rules to live by, this isn't it. I wouldn't say this is it. Now, yeah, I just wouldn't say that's it. That's just me.
I can't. Listen, 48 Laws of Power, as you see, as we've done that portion of the breakdown, really it is a book that it's not power at all. It is perceived power. It is a surfactant. It's like soap when you're washing your hand. It's gonna get over the surface of something if you use enough water.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not gonna be, you know what I'm saying, no iodine, no betadine. It ain't gonna get down underneath the layers of the skin and really be that antiseptic that you need if you want to have total power. Because that gets into a psychological principle, but we're gonna look at a little bit of the 48 Laws of Power because we don't want to keep you all day. I mean, not the 48 Laws of Power, the Art of War. So a great way to summarize the 48 Laws of Power. It's not good. But now, the transference of power, girl. The Art of War teaches so much. And I mean, I just honestly, I don't even know where to start, because if we're really going to get into the Art of the War, this could be a whole series, because that's how much is encapsulated in that book. You can't take 10 bullet points and surmise the knowledge and the wisdom that is in that writing and that teaching. Sun Tzu was one of the greatest the greatest philosophical minds of that time. Mm-hmm. When you sit there and you read the essays, and then you go back and then you read through each and every line of text, it's just it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Even the things that you don't on the surface see how it can apply, if you're really taking a moment to ingest it, you see how it applies to the whole. The Chinese version.
I was gonna say that book should be over here on the floor somewhere, because I don't got my little thing yet. But I was going to say my son actually took it from me, and he read it because somebody asked him to read it. So he was like, he was like, can you go to the library? I was like, boy, I got that downstairs. But I can't find it right now. I thought it was over here, but it's somewhere.
Child, it's somewhere in mine too, because I have the actual text. Like it's very beat up. It's been read.
Oh,
like
you got the old school joint.
Old school with the yellow sun on the cover. Listen, it's a favorite. It's a fair favorite. Been reading it for years. Do a series. Okay, I might. We might do a brief synopsis, and then I might just go ahead and start y'all off with the essays, and then show you guys how I read the Art of War and how I've been able to ingest it and apply it to life. But when we're looking at transference of powers, which women especially need to understand, we're going to start here. One who seeks to conquer by sheer strength, clever though he may be at winning pitched battles, is also liable on occasion to be vanquished. Whereas he who can look into the future and discern conditions that are not yet manifest will never make a blunder and therefore invariably win. Making no mistakes is what establishes the certainty of victory. for it means conquering an enemy that is already defeated. Hence, the skillful fighter puts himself into a position which makes defeat impossible and does not miss the moment for defeating the enemy. One mark of a great soldier is that he or she fights on his or her own terms or fights not at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's unfortunate that you think it's too dated and useless in modern life. Maybe it's an opportunity for you to change your vantage point.
The Chinese version, okay, yeah, maybe you need to update maybe the verbiage that you might use. Maybe you need to unabridge, translation. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about, because what Raw just read here is essentially what we, in some ways, described earlier in terms of understanding how to win. The first law to understanding how to win is knowing when you can win and knowing when you can't win. Now, in conversation, I think it's called knowing when it's a no-win situation. Don't engage if you know you're not going to win that verbal battle. It's no point. So don't even engage in it, right? That's looking into the future and looking at the situation and understanding what it is and what it's not. But it's like, if every time something comes up, you just there to make sure you know what I mean, you there to fight and manipulate and do whatever the case may be, yeah, you making yourself a liability to other things that you're not looking at, because you're not the only one that's out there doing that. But if the only time you engage in a fight is where you see where you have the advantage, period, that's the only time you're going to engage, well, the likelihood of you losing, you see what I'm saying, is greatly diminished, if not always going to be in your favor. So, I think, like we was discussing, that is a better strategy for life. You see what I'm saying? Now, you can use that in battle too. No, don't get me wrong. Like open warfare. But at the same time, you can also use that in any situation in life, and the principle still stands. And that's what I mean by the feminine principle of it. It's malleable, in which you can use it anywhere. It's not strict in terms of, well, it works here, but here you're gonna have to compromise here and da 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 da. Like, that's what I mean. But I totally understand that, and honestly, I don't think the language that it's using is outdated. I didn't catch that. I didn't get that. Maybe I read a lot of stuff, but I don't know. I didn't catch it.
I mean, it speaks to the lack of education and critical thinking that is taught to the American populace. American people need everything broken down to the tiniest and most simplistic value of each and every word in order for them to be able to ingest the message. And I get it. For those of you that require that, this is probably not the channel for you. Because I'm going to push your mind. I'm going to make you expand your thought process, because I'm not going to dumb down the way I think. I'm not going to dumb down the way I process. And I'm not going to dumb down the way I speak so that, everybody can grasp it. Sure, there are moments when we're being relatable and we're playing around or whatever. But when we're having conversations where we're actually speaking to ideologies and philosophical principles, they don't require too much watering down of something, because this is when the gist of the wisdom of old is missed on the invincibility of youth.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I was taught as a young child is, if it makes you think, if it's too hard, if you don't understand, pull out a dictionary, look up the words. The only thing that's going to do is expand your mind. You have to be able to think about things deeper than the surface. You have to. This is how you excel in business. This is how you excel socially. This is how you excel in relationships. Because what I find is, most people are like, oh, well, let's take for instance a relationship. You didn't call me today. I'm so upset that you didn't call me. Man, I called you. It is what it is. You're going to be all right. And then there's a breakdown in communication. When the reality is, the problem in that example is not necessarily about the call. There are deeper issues underlying that push the argument, just like a lot of these spaces. The argument is never the topic of the show. It's never relationships. It's unhealed trauma. And when you are precision with this, the way your vantage point is set up and what you see, you get a different level of clarity. A person can type 5 words and I will know a lot about them. A person can say 2 and I can see through their whole soul. A lot of people not thinking critically about anything. I mean, it's so I know I am, I know, right? I mean, it's cool that you may think that, but again, it's a thing, which means you have a question, which means that you're not sure. Which means like the 48 laws of power it's a facade, it's a fallacy.
Well, bro, I'll be honest with you. When I first read the Tao Te Ching, right? It was in English. See what I'm saying? But even though it was in English,
what you say? Because we don't know nothing about Chinese version.
when I read the Tao Te Ching, it was hard for me to internalize, like, let's say, how they were speaking. But like you said, I had to go back and slow down like real hard, because in our culture we used to reading at a certain pace and spitting things out. That level of reading caused me to read each word and hold it and string it together and then see the whole idea, not the words. You see what I'm saying? In a different way. So I remember the most enigmatic part of the Tao Te Ching for me was when it said the named is not the eternal name. That took me, like, that stuck with me for years. And it was only until maybe in the past couple years that I've started to understand what a name is, why a name is, and what that has to do with eternity. You see what I'm saying? But just that statement in and of itself, the named is not the eternal name. That's one sentence, but it's taken me years to break that down. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, it's few words, but again, it causes that internal reflection. So whether or not that is the exact phraseology coming from a transliteration coming out of the language or not, because I see people making an issue about, translations or whatever the case may be, U.S. version. It's about the idea, and we're not talking about historicity here. We're talking about philosophical issues right now. Like I said, we can apply this to wartime circumstance, or we can apply this to life circumstances. Now, if you disagree because of the translation or whatever the case may be, then you can make that argument. But for right now, I don't see how I don't see the relevancy of what translation we're using, and if it's the U.S. version versus the Asian version versus the European version. It's like, are we wrong about something?
Versus the Telugu version, versus the women's version, versus the 36 stratagem version, versus the bilingual version, versus, like, come on now, what are we talking about here? But again, you guys, ladies and gentlemen, you will see this is what we were talking about earlier. People will try to distract from the overall message because some people simply like to debate, and it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
What we would like to see, Joshua, is we would like to see you do some content. Matter of fact, I issue you a challenge. I want you to do a content of the differences between the Chinese version and the United States version. And I promise you, I will come and support and see if you have a difference of perspective from what I have and what Miss Oshun has. I appreciate you.
Yay,
Yes.
Joshua. I'm looking forward to. Matter of fact, make sure you ping me on Instagram so I can come, make sure I'm there.
Absolutely. Now, back to what we're talking about on this show. Now, another great point in the art of war, no matter what version you choose to enjoy. Uh-huh. Because if you know what, I'm sorry, I have to address this one more time. All versions of the art of war are variation of Sun Tzu. They are merely translated to make the message in the art of war the Mandarin text, which is quite voluminous.
Yeah.
Right? They translated it because in Mandarin, one character can mean like 19, 20 words. You know what I'm saying? So they have taken it and they made sure it was digestible. And like how we have referenced here, they've put it in so many versions and variations so that the message can reach everywhere. Just like Jehovah Witnesses who have translated the Bible in so many different languages across the globe so that everybody gets the message of the Bible. But when you've been reading since you're 2.5 years old, and you have so many, 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 many books under your belt, then you kind of understand. So for those of you that don't know, allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Raw. My mama taught me how to read at the tender age of 2.5 years old. I've been reading ever since. Every single book I've read in multiple variations, quite a few of them in multiple languages. Y'all say all these accents and different voices that I speak in, where do you think they come from? Probably all the cultures that I've been exposed to as a native New Yorker. Shabbat Shalom.
Oh my God. You're right. Okay. So, Mr. Jones, Mr. Joshua.
Don't.
Well, I'm not going to get on it, but I'm going to say this: just because we're not saying it doesn't mean we don't know it, and that's part of maturity, right? I don't have to tell you that I read the Apocrypha. I don't have to tell you that I read many different articles on research on the Septuagint. Like, I don't have to tell you to the degree that I've studied anthropology and I've studied religion throughout the world. I don't have to tell you about my personal walk in different religions throughout the world. Like, I don't have to tell you that. But right now we're talking about the art of war. That phrase says something very different than the 48 laws of power. It's different. Now, if you're arguing that we're not understanding what Rod just put on the screen, by all means, say that in the chat. Like, put something so we can respond to it. But right now, if you're arguing translated versus not translated, like she said, that's not what we're arguing right now. You can do a panel show and invite us and then, argue that if you have the intellectual capacity to do that.
Because for all intents and purposes, what we're showing you is good old American pie. So you should be able to keep up, right? Let's keep up. Okay, so hence, to fight and conquer in all of your battles is not supreme excellence. Dang. Ooh. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. The junta. Damn.
See? That right there, Roy. That right there. Okay. Without fighting. The art of war is getting what you need without fighting. Like, that's the art of it. Like, seriously. So that's like, this is why I like that book. I really like that book. Like, it takes you to a deeper level of what the meaning of just life is and how to live it too. So, I'm a fan of it, but I'll try to critique.
Yes. Therefore, the skillful leaders subdues the enemy's troops without any fighting. He captures their cities without laying siege to them. He overthrows their kingdom without lengthy operations in the field.
Oh, they're not apex predators. Wow. Skillful leaders aren't apex predators. They're not alpha predators. Wow.
But let people tell it. They are. I prefer the wisdom of old when people were conquering massive amounts of territory with no social media influence, without access to cell phones, GPS, airplanes, and anything else, just simply walking through the forest and taking over.
That part. That part. Okay.
You know.
That part. That part.
You know what I find interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever watched that movie, The Last Samurai?
I have.
Now, while it is fictionally based, there is some truth to it when you look at the historical context, because that's right before Nagasaki, Hiroshima, Pearl Harbor, all this and all that. It's funny how Americans went to their land. They were teaching them something, and then within a season or two, the little morsels of knowledge was used to amass a major army that is still a persistent problem to this very day. Shout out to all my Asian family. What's good? You know what I'm saying? But anyway, neither is it the acme of excellence if you fight and conquer and the whole empire says, well done. True excellence being, as Sun Tzu says, to plan secretly, to move surreptitiously, to foil the enemy's intention and balk his schemes, so that at last the day may be won without shedding a drop of blood. See, there are so many different ways to attack a situation, abrasiveness, kerfuffles, emotional instability, people's incessant need to be right or whatever. Listen, when you know what you know, just let people breathe. Sometimes what people need most often is just to be heard. So I just let people go on and 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 on. Because when you're solidified in your position, there's no need to yell. There's no need to exert power. That happened to me today. So Lola, that's what I actually called you to talk about, girl. We got off into 50 million topics, girl.
What happened? What happened?
It was in this meeting, girl. We was talking or whatever. And we were trying to get some clarity on the thing. And as I'm talking, one of my coworkers decided to just pop on mic, and they were just being loud and I was like, oh, and oh, I just put myself on mute. Girl. I was like, okay.
Okay, go ahead.
But I didn't even have to say anything because everybody else was like, yo, you was out of pocket. Bro was talking. Right. See, what a lot of people need to learn is, and that happened earlier today too, and this might be risky in the Discord. Me and him was talking, and while I was talking, somebody just decided to jump in the middle of the Discord. Him was like, yo, we was in the middle of a discussion. Like, it's kind of rude. When you maintain self-control, it's very easy to snap on people like, hey, yo, you see me talking? Hey, yo, you see me doing content right now? Like, chill out. You know what I'm saying? Like, relax. It's easy to do that, but for what? For what? Let people get them out. See, again, true power is in not fighting at all. And the gag and the drag of it all is, could it be said that that was use of the 48 laws of power? Letting somebody else do the heavy lifting? Possibly. So there is, uses for that, but knowing when to and how to apply something, that comes from core structure and core belief system. Chow, 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 chow. Ooh.
But okay, so let's look at it this way, right? So in the art of war, it's talking about being perceptive first, and then making informed decisions in whether or not something's worth your exertion, and then ensuring that if it is worth your exertion, it has that outcome you want. So again, you're in the position of power before you even engage. So like, okay, right now I can say, well, okay, Mr. Joshua is focused on, the same things most religious zealots are focused on, right? They don't want to focus on the spirituality of religion. They want to focus on, well, who wrote this, what year was this, and was this, and blah, 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 all of that, right? And they could be all true, but their focus is on that, right? Versus what people are actually talking about. It would be it wouldn't be good for me to keep going back and forth with somebody that's not in a place to hear me. I'm literally wasting my breath. So I can see them, right? I can see his statements, and I cannot see his statements, because at the end of the day, if he really wants to understand something, he can Google just like everyone else. If he wants me to understand something, he has to engage on my playing field, on my time, based on how I want to do it. Like, he's not going to come in and teach me while insulting me. He's not going to take me too far off my conversation that I don't want to go on. Like right now, I'm using him as an example to elucidate the point we're talking about. I'm not going off into the weeds where he's at. That's a losing battle. Not the battle that I can't win, but it's a battle that doesn't have the outcome that I'm actually looking for. It doesn't profit me to go but so far in down the rabbit hole, with people. What's the point of that? We're here to talk about the art of war versus the 48 laws of power, to elucidate something that happened earlier with Raw that I think is very pertinent for people to talk about, that I haven't heard talked about. So no, I'm not going to let someone bait me into a war, a verbal war, that isn't something that I can win. Like, I'm not going to win anything from that. That's a life example of what the text is talking about. It's not just in combat; it's in life. See the end in the beginning, and make sure that you follow that formula, because no matter what you do, you'll always be on top. So no, my emotions don't have to run high. I don't have to get in my bag, as they say. I don't have to prove anything to anybody, because again, everybody here is an adult. They can read his comments and they can feel the need to pay attention to it or not. That's what we're here for, information. He's not saying anything that we don't welcome. Like right now, Raw B could block him if she really wanted to, but what's the point? He's engaging in the show. He's making our life better. So again, we're not using you, but I will allow you to do what you do on my time based on what I want. I would like for you to continue to engage because it keeps things spicy, but I'm not going to engage you in no fight because it doesn't profit me to. But you doing this definitely does. So that's the real world example of that. But you can worry about who wrote the book and what their real name is, and who what the who their mama, where their mama lived at, and all of that. That might serve you. It don't serve me. Just
Okay, wait a minute. So this is the thing, right? He says it's a losing battle because you're talking about a writing that you like the words of. So that means that you may have missed the premise and you may not understand the intent of the content. The intent of the content is a comparison, the 48 laws of power versus the art of war, right? So you said it's no different than commenting on a self-help book. Both of these books essentially are self-help books, even though the art of war in all of its versions and iterations is considered military stratagem, right? None of us live in the time frame in which we actually have to package supplies and haul them across vapid, endless, expanses of land in order to fight a physical interaction with someone, right? So, what we're speaking to is how these principles and ideologies actually enhance the individual. So you did get it right. We're commenting on self-help books and how certain perspectives in literature can be the antithesis to what it is that you are trying to achieve, whereas the other one, the light versus the lie, speak to a mindset that is more in alignment with homeostasis and developing the skills of self discipline and self control. So I'm glad you're getting it. The version is inconsequential. Now, if we were debating the literary aspects or the potentiality to be most effective in military stratagem, then it would make more sense to argue which version it was. But like most people in most conversations in these spaces, the content creator is having the conversation that they want to have. But sometimes the audience has a filter of confirmation bias where they want the conversation to be what they want it to be. When the reality is, like I said to you before, if you want to debate the different versions and their intensity and relativity to military strategy, you're more than welcome to do so. What we are talking about is strategies to success. The 48 Laws of Power literally has nothing to do with military stratagem. It has to do with manipulating a people. Now, what you extrapolate from reading the Art of War in any version is what you get from it. But when we're talking about interpersonal, interdependent relationships, the Art of War speaks to those in a very poignant way. Again, I beseech you to keep up. So, back to the Art of War. How to leave. Don't play with it. Don't play with it. Don't play with it. Cool. Yes. Proverbs 1:7. Amen. Love you too. Okay.
Yes, praise be to God, because you needed that, sir. But anyway.
All hail King Jesus. All hail Emmanuel. It'll teach you some theology too, huh? But we ain't gonna go there today. How to lead. He wore the same clothes and ate the same food as the meanest of his soldiers. Refused to have either a horse to ride or a mat to sleep on. Carried his own surplus rations, wrapped in a parcel, and shared every hardship with his men. Now, a lot of times in these spaces, we talk about leadership. But as these people talk about leadership, they also sit high and mighty on the throne and they talk about elitism.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot lead a people when you don't have their shared experience.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why they always say all good leaders started from the bottom, now they're here. Which is why it's taught and it's said, the American version, American pie. If you want to be a CEO of a company, you have to start at the lowest employee position and be able to do every single job in order to do the role of CEO, CFO, COO effectively. Are you willing to get down in the trenches with people?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you want to be a six figure by the name of Jigga? I wait. Even when these people with money and status want to be relatable, what do they usually do? They read the room.
Mm-hmm.
They pick the lowest common denominator, and then they play into that.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though they're using the 48 laws of power as a mask, the core belief behind it is Art of War ideology. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts is exactly that, but I think people need to see it in like present day examples. For instance, when Kamala Harris went to the southern USA and she was giving her speech, and everybody's used to her accent. She's Indian. But when she gave her speech, and part of her speech was done in a very southern accent. And people know she's not from the South. She doesn't really have that accent. She doesn't at all. And when she did that, it was like she was trying to pull the lowest common denominator that she could play into, which is an accent, because she's not from their culture. She can't relate. So she pulled something that she can play into. However, like we were saying earlier, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but that perceived power is going to end quickly, because you're exposing yourself by, as they say, like when you reach out, you expose yourself. I mean, it is what it is. Versus, you see what I'm saying? If she was to try to relate to them on a level where she genuinely does, people can appreciate that more, versus trying to deceive somebody by an accent to make them think that she has a life similar to them, she has a culture similar to them. And truth be told, that's not the case. People picked up on that very quickly. And now anytime somebody asks her about anything related to that, she don't even want to talk about it, because she got to reel it back in, so to speak. So now she lost credibility with people because she tried to live by the 48 laws of power in that instance. But if she would have done in the instance of the art of war, which is relate to the people that's common to you, actually do that. Don't try to fake anything. Actually relate, speak to them plainly. You see what I'm saying? They are not your enemy, and even if they was your enemy, even your enemy you can relate to. So it's like, again, there is different perspectives. But when we like we were talking about, if we're gonna do it, compare it pound for pound, we can show you that trying to do it in the the laws of war, laws of power circumstance versus the art of war. The art of war is about knowing you, thus you know the external. The other
Only
way
the Chinese
around.
version. Only the Chinese version.
Who? Oh, I see that. I see that. She was like, "Who knows?" Hey, I don't. Okay, I don't know. All I know is I look for the English subtitles. That's it. Everywhere I go. So I ain't even going for it.
But now you know what's funny? I wonder if this is from the Chinese version or the American version. We cannot enter into alliance with neighboring princes until we are acquainted with their design.
Mm-hmm.
We are not fit to lead an army on the march unless we are familiar with the face of the country, its
Mm-hmm.
mountains and forests, its pitfalls and precipices, its marshes and swamps. We shall be unable to turn natural advantages to account unless we make use of local guides. The axiom that war is based on deception does not only apply to the deception of the enemy. You must deceive even your own soldiers, make them follow you, but without letting them know why. It is the business of a general to be quiet and thus ensure secrecy, upright and just, and thus maintain order. He must be able to mystify his officers and men by false reports and appearances, literally to deceive their eyes and ears, and thus keep them in total ignorance. Sao Kong gives us his excellent apothegm. The troops must not be allowed to share your schemes in the beginning. They may only rejoice with you over their happy outcome. To mystify, mislead, and surprise the enemy is one of the first principles in wars, as has been frequently pointed out. But how about the other processes, the mystification of one's own men? Those who may think that Sun Tzu is over empathetic on this point would do well to read Colonel Henderson's remarks on Stonewall Jackson's Valley campaign. The infinite pains, he says, with which Jackson sought to conceal even from his most trusted staff officers, his movements, his intentions, and his thoughts. A commander less thorough would have been pronounced useless. See, for me, the point of that is this. If you're a leader, a true leader, first of all, you must know your enemy like you know yourself. You can't know anything about your enemy if you're always talking. If you're always talking and you always need to be right and you always want to undermine whatever it is that you see your enemy saying or doing, you're never getting to know them in their natural state. You're getting to know them on the defense, which means you're missing out on a lot. It would behoove a lot of people to simply STFU. God gave you one mouth and two ears so that you could hear in 360 in totality. A lot of y'all play yourself out of pocket, play yourself out of position, play yourself out of being in a position to learn because you so vehemently need to be right. I enjoyed the exchange with Joshua in the chat because it allowed me to see his mind clearly. See, y'all gotta, people be like, oh my God, people be trolling and this, that, and the third. Who cares? Let them troll. You have the vantage point when you are non-reactive to see people in their most natural state. But everybody wants to be reactive and upset and animated because they're not secure in who they are. They need to prove something. What's there to prove? And you see, we let a lot of comments go by before we got to the point, his perspective of what he thinks he's viewing versus what is actually being showcased, shown, or studied here. And again, nobody got to take my word for it. Nobody got to move how I move. Again, a true general is very quiet about their intentions. They just do shit. Go ahead, Lola.
Listen. People create the examples in their behavior. But again, I'm not here to debate what's not important. You see what I'm saying? But I do see how when people try to apply these let's say these concepts the wrong way, how detrimental it can be to their overall understanding and their overall survival. I can see that. Right now, there seems to be, like, people talk about this male and female war, right? Well, the part of the reason why it seems to be a war is because there's this perception that they're on different sides. Now, again, the word I use that word very literally, perception, because if you were in a real war, there would be no, deceptive to get what you want out of it. It would be decimate or decimate. That's what that would be. But it's like you're talking about the interworkings of humanity, which is a very sensitive thing. So it takes people to get to know each other so that they can interact with one another according to each other's nature. That takes a certain level of intellect to do. Now, I'll be honest with you. I've seen animals have greater intellect than human beings in this way. I've seen almost the smallest of animals show greater intellect in terms of understanding that they must understand the nature of the thing that they're involved with in order for them to survive. For instance, do you think dogs wake up knowing what a heart attack smell like inside your body, or what your facial expression means when you're in pain? We tend to smile and show our teeth when we're happy. That we're the only species that do that. You think animals don't have to learn, if they want something from you, they got to learn what makes you tick? They're animals. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, and if dominion was given to quote unquote man to rule over earth, Why our subordinates got more intellect than us? They really don't. But we're choosing not to have intellect and say, okay, as a woman, I'm not inferior, but my position is unique. And thus people have to engage me in a unique way. Same thing with men. See what I'm saying? Like you said, the neck is not more important than the head. Like it just isn't. I don't care if you like the face more than it's just not. It should take away my neck. It's no point in wearing any makeup, earrings, none of that. Like it's just no point. So I see the beauty in the comparison, because if you want to understand something truly, compare it to its opposite so you can get a greater understanding of what you're talking about. So I think it's a great comparison between these two books, and it's a blessing that we don't have to compare, let's say, 30 different books, and it's broken down that way. We have two books that are talking about the same thing from two different sides of reality, and we can clearly see how both sides of that reality fit us in our everyday life, and in our life when we're in circumstances that are not natural, but we cause, like war and stuff. Because somebody said, we live in an environment where there's violence. No, we don't. Violence only ensues when we choose for it to ensue. It's just not there. Like right now, do you see violence in this room? Like, is there violence going on? Like what's happening? Or do you see the world in its natural homeostasis? Like, which one? So, like, again, it's these concepts that need to be flushed out. But if you don't have no compare and contrast to nothing, and all you're doing is learning from a single source that you really don't understand because there's no comparison factor, this is where we start spiraling we start spiraling, because my greatest education has came from being in a classroom and a professor asking me a question and I answered, and then he challenged me to challenge my own answer. You see what I'm saying? Or my own understanding of it. That was the best way I've learned. Like, just in general, I've never learned my best way from just reading a thing and then okay, there you go. Like, you know what I mean? That statement I said that was kind of like plagued me from the Tao Te Ching. I had to like do a lot of other reading and understanding and listening to myself, my intellect, my spirit, other people, elders, just to kind of get an understanding of what that thing is talking about. So, it caused me a lot of self-reflection. But again, if somebody said, well, the way to get power is just to make sure nobody knows what's really going on so you can always be in the know and the only one. It's easy to lie. It's easy to lie. I can tell you right now, my name's Cassandra Carter. You see how easy that was? But it's not easy for me to sit and give you all the ugly parts of me and connect with you in a way where you would support any endeavor I embark on. That's not, that part ain't easy. So I get the struggle here, but I implore you, not you, Roy, but I implore people to embark on the struggle. Trust me, there's a beautiful ending in that.
Exactly. Now we're going to read this last part from The Art of War, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the psychology behind it all. Because again, I'll save that for my final thoughts. Dealing with the enemy. Force him to reveal himself so as to find out his vulnerable spots. See, what a lot of people don't realize is when people are caught up on origins, versions, words, and definitions, that's their vulnerability. Mm-hmm. Their vulnerability is the narrow-mindedness. Mm-hmm. It's the box that they're painted in. It's their inability to flex their mental muscle to see beyond what is presented to them right in front of their face, right? Mm-hmm. So it is often best, if you want to succeed when dealing with people, to just, again, watch. Let them reveal themselves. I will do and say things just on purpose, like I said, to make people expose the inner working of their mind. And y'all watch the real time. I let somebody say all of that to get to the point. What's the point? Mm-hmm. Again, these are principles that I live. So yes, different. This version right here is being showed to you. I'll never tell you all I read because that would be pointless. Appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend. March swiftly to places where you are not expected. An army may march great distances without distress if it marches through country where the enemy is not. Sao Kung sums up very well. Emerge from the void, strike at vulnerable points, shun places that are defended, attack in unexpected quarters. It is a principle of war not to pursue desperate men and not to press a retreating host. What's your thoughts on that, Oshu?
But do me a favor, throw it back up real quick.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think this passage, the last one, goes back to the first principles that you were reading in terms of winning without fighting, right? If your opponent is already retreating, you don't win because, you know, let's say you don't win because you're over winning, right? If you've won because they've tapped out, you don't win anything extra because you went beyond the tapping and tried to kill them. You say no, delete. That's not what that's not what's, you're not the winner there. If they're already in submission, you don't get brownie points for forcing it through the submission because you know, so angry or whatever the case may be. Knowing when you've won and when to like let it go and move is just as important as knowing when you can't win something. You see what I'm saying? And honestly, I had to learn that lesson too. It's like sometimes when you won in a conversation, it doesn't, and somebody is kind of like let's suppose like you talking to somebody, right? And you say something and it's factually true, but then they start calling you names and they start saying that, you know, you ain't shit da 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 da. Now they can't refute you. This is them bowing out. You don't have to really show that you're the intellectual one. Clearly, like that's a clear case of that, right? But if let's suppose like you say, well, would you're not answering the question. I can tell you don't know anything, and then they really don't. But because they're embarrassed, they're gonna engage you in a more aggressive way, even though they're not talking about the question at hand because they're embarrassed. As an intellectual, you should be able to see that further embarrassment does not make your point. If your point is made and they can't combat it, then your point is made. But you don't get extra points. You're not making your point because you're overdoing the win. Like that's not what that is. And even with me, like sometimes, like you know what I mean, when I'm practicing martial arts, right, and they're saying, you know, go all the way through with a you know, with a movement. Sometimes, like when somebody taps, I want to let go. I don't want to hold on and make them feel my strength and all of that. I know how it feels to be in that position. So I don't get off by saying no, I'm gonna make you feel this. I already know that when you're in the submissive position, how that is. I know when I've won. I don't need to, you know, show everyone else or even myself that I'm strong. Because you don't have to exert but so much force to get a human body in a position, in a submission position. You don't. Like, so I mean, for somebody who is still dealing with angst inside themselves, yeah, sure. They got something to prove. They got chips everywhere on their shoulder. But when you cleared of that and you don't have that, you don't have no chips on your shoulder, you know when you've won. Now, if you don't know when you've won, yeah, you're gonna chase, as this saying says, you're gonna chase people, you're gonna chase their conversation, you're gonna chase their attention. You don't need to chase their attention when you understand who's really in a position of control and power in a conversation or in a circumstance, and like who's not. When you know, you don't have to let anyone else know. You don't have to, you know what I mean, exert the extra win. Like that's not necessary But it's where the unnecessary comes in, where you start to lose. If you overdo anything in life, now you're out of balance and you're at a liability too. Let's say you in a fight, right? And you've won, but instead you're gonna sit and try to beat their skull out their skin, right? Somebody else is gonna see that, yeah, they might have pushed you and stuff and you won, but you beating their skull out. Nah, you ain't gonna do that. So now you got 5 people to fight off. Now you might have been able to fight one person and get that skull beaten off, but you ain't about to get that off on 5 people at once. You see what I'm saying? That extra going extra now then turned into something else. You could have just put them in a hole, made sure that they know not to play with you. And even if you had to break their arm, just break their arm and leave it. But the fact that you want to go to the furthest extent to prove your point because winning isn't enough for you, yeah, that part.
Listen, I don't know because, and I believe that right there.
Oh, you know what, Roy? Okay, let me say this. See, I know what you're getting at, right? The difference is this. Okay, maybe only you will understand this. The difference is this. Sometimes when sometimes people put things out there, right, and they don't understand the impact of it. And as I said in the beginning, everything moves in a circle. Sometimes they put something out there, and when that circle is a quarter of the way going up, they hollering and screaming. But the way life works, you get the same energy back that you gave out, not a little bit, the same energy back. That's different. Now, if it was like under the circumstances, and I'll be a little vague for this conversation. If let's say somebody sent somebody to somebody's house to clean up, if you catch my drift, over a statement that was in poor taste, that lacked respect, all of that. Now other people are paying a cost outside of the people originally involved. That would be okay, a win, but beyond the win. However, what you put out is what you're going to get back. Sometimes it's not going to be in the same form that you put it out there. And everybody that knows anything about energy and good deeds and bad deeds understand that. Like, you might do something, sure, but then the way you feel it back might be different. It might not be exact. It might be different. You see what I'm saying? But it's still going to be the same level of energy you put out. It's not going to be a iota less or iota more. But I think in that way we have to kind of taper that, because we all know. You see what I'm saying? But that's what I would say to that.
Child, listen, y'all know I'm just a horrible
She said that shit.
horrible person. But boom, I itch. But we're gonna talk to the psychological purpose of the whole entire conversation. Mm-hmm. For those of you that have made it this far, we appreciate you. For those of you that were patient enough to listen to the discussion and glean from it what you could take the meat and spit out the bones, we definitely appreciate you. Hey, Spottum. Hey, Tay Tay. The point is the theory of human motivation. Hey, brother of a certain age. Maslow's extended hierarchy of needs. I want you guys to understand something in the hierarchy of needs. Just as we saw during this conversation that the 48 laws of power in some regards overlap with the art of war, even though the whole of the art of war is more about self-improvement. The 48 laws of power speaks to manipulation and deception that you have to use. These are all necessary when we're talking about the theory of human motivation. Each one of these needs are dependent. They're interdependent on one another. Basic needs, psychological needs, self-fulfillment needs, and deficiency needs. The needs that once not met, the self-fulfillment needs have no chance at all of thriving and surviving past. See, I've been talking to you guys about Maslow's for a long time. But I'm now starting to break y'all down into the theory of human motivation. Because ultimately, there was a school of thought that was teaching that self-actualization was the end game and the end goal, right? Near the peak of development are self-actualization needs. These involve realizing personal potential, self-fulfillment, seeking personal growth, and peak experiences. Maslow described this as the desire to accomplish everything that one can and to be the most that one can be. But as we take a look back into ancient wisdom, reading texts like, The Art of War, we start to realize how to reach transcendence. Now, Maslow really understood transcendence later on in life. Transcendence needs are about spirituality and helping others to achieve their own self actualization. This need represents the highest level of development in his revised hierarchy because the theory of human motivation was actually written well after the hierarchy of needs was published and taught throughout the world. When I listen to a lot of these discussions, it's people that are antiquated. They're not worried about aesthetic needs, cognitive needs, esteem needs. Self actualization is absolutely off the table. And most assuredly, they're not worried about transcendence. They are stuck on the lowest tiers. They are stuck on physiological needs, safety needs, belonging, and love. At some point, I need people to understand if you have to master these things. You have to. But because these things are so problematic for people, they're not getting to esteem needs. So you have to belong. You have to have belongingness and love needs met first. That level includes social needs, such as the desire for emotional relationships, like friendships and romantic attachments and family. Humans need to feel a sense of belonging and acceptance among social groups, regardless to whether these groups are large or small. And let me say that again for the slow people in the back. Regardless of whether these groups are large or small. Stop thinking that you have to be a part of the major number. You don't. You don't. It could be a group of 3. It could be a trio, and you're good to go. But the cognitive needs are the ones that Maslow introduced later on. These involve the need for knowledge and understanding, and the desire to explore, seek meaning, predict, and control the world. Maslow included these needs to acknowledge the human desire to learn and understand. So many of you do not desire to learn or understand. Because in order to learn and understand, you have to have a personal relationship with education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And a person that's a student of life knows there's so many different ways to learn. And none of them, well, I'll take that back. You can be abrasive and learn some lessons. My grandfather used to always say a hard head will make a soft behind. Some people need a soft ass, they need an ass whooping. I don't know. But for normality's sake, it's not normal. It's quite unhinged, to be honest. What are your thoughts, Lola?
I think it does boil back down to the trauma. I think trauma causes us to stay at that esteem level and down. Like you see what I'm saying? And even though I could be talking about slight trauma you don't even think you experience, but it still affects you, right? I think that's somewhat of the source of that, because when you're not suffering from trauma, right, you don't have any inhibitors to why, for instance, in a conversation you want to defend the 48 laws of power versus learn the difference between the two books. You see what I'm saying? And embrace what's good about the 48 laws of power and the art of war. It's like if you are always in a defensive mode, right? Whenever, like when we talked earlier, like whenever a woman comes around, you're in defense. So you have to say something derogatory so that you can feel safe. Because like in the instance earlier, I'm just there, and for no apparent reason, we're talking about immigration. Somebody's up there saying women's only purpose is to make sure that you don't have anything, and all that, like, come on, like, you need to feel safe. That has a lot to do with your trauma. Like, nobody's talking about relationships. Nobody's talking about women in specific. We're talking about immigrants. Okay. Like, you know what I mean? This is what I'm saying. Like, I can see it from a distance, but that's an inhibitor. People that suffer from that in that instance, they can't be concerned with anything, like I said, above esteem. They need to boost their own esteem. So by being derogatory and let's say that not coming back, it gives them a false sense of esteem, right? Because essentially at the bottom of that, they don't feel safe around you because they have trauma. So they need to build that wall up so they can feel safe. Meanwhile, it's a schizophrenic situation when you really look at it. Like, it is. So you can't move beyond into transcendence because you can't be you don't have essentially the mental ability to come off of your trauma of protecting yourself and on to what is the unknown that you don't know, but you have a wiring to understand. Human beings were wired to understand what we don't know, unlike other creatures. What they don't know, they don't know. They're not wired to investigate every single thing. Our minds investigate even when we don't want to. So, this is what I see in my everyday interactions, and I can point it out, but I guess in the moment earlier, right, I didn't point it out because I felt like for me to point that out was to make the situation more hostile. And I already seen that it came in hostile. And I'm not going to win against hostility. One, I don't have the energy. Two, people are going to be hostile regardless of why they're hostile. You see what I'm saying? And I don't got the time to heal anybody of their trauma in one particular panel discussion. So I didn't engage, but I did see that. And it's interesting that you brought this up tonight because it literally just kind of confirms just what I'm experiencing just in general about the real power for me is having power over myself first, and then having that extended control of circumstances that in a sense I'm controlling based on what I want out of it. Like, if I want to learn something from that situation, I'll control my own temperament and therefore I will get what I want out of it, the learning I came for. If I'm just there to, mess around and it's just entertainment, I can control the pace of that. But again, I'm controlling me, not other people, because as the book said, I'm looking at the environment, I'm studying the room, I'm reading the room, as you said a long time ago. Read the room. Like, yeah, if you ain't reading the room, you just in there just being a bull in a china shop. That's it.
Well, see, it's just kind of like the situation that happened here earlier in the chat, right? And this just speaks to where I am on my journey. People can present as hostile, and it is very easy to cue in on that. But I found it's easier to not be reactive and give people license to hear them out. Because what we essentially got to at the end of that whole exchange was their vantage point and their perspective on the conversation was skewed in the wrong energy, in the wrong vein of things. And that's how I feel a lot of discussions in general, in live, on these panels, in these spaces go. People have rarely been taught, to Tay-Tay's point, people have been rarely given the tools in order to move past the esteem portion to get to the cognitive. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because if your parents haven't taught you that you belong, they haven't given you the air of safety, they did not meet your physiological needs. Your parents haven't taught you how to use cognition, right? One thing that is a problem in my family, when we have movie night, listen, if you ain't there at the start of the movie, you better go find something to do. Nobody's running it back, and you're not going to understand what's happening in the movie because you're coming in, you know what I'm saying? At an odd point. My family always watches crazy movie. You guys check out like My Man Godfrey, okay? Stuff like that is dope. But if you come into My Man Godfrey at the wrong portion, you're lost. You literally don't get the whole point of the movie until you see it to the end, and then you're like, oh, I got it. Or if you're watching a movie like Gone with the Wind,
Yeah.
if you come in at the wrong point, you like, what? You understand what I'm saying? So when you are raised that like you have to look at things totality, even a book. This is a sousson, right? It's meant to titillate your taste buds so you could go find whatever version of the book you want to read. If you want to read the American version, the unabridged version, the complete version, annotated with notes, the woman's version, who gives, I personally don't care. Just as long as you're reading, I don't really, it's inconsequential. But the point is, all the whole buildup, the compare and contrast between the two books was to get to the end lesson about surpassing your issues of self-esteem so you can tap into cognitive needs. So you can tap into self-actualization. So you can tap into transcendence. So you can elevate yourself as a human being. A lot of these conversations every day is people operating in their lowest vibration and their basest energy because they are like rats that are drowning, seeking some type of refuge because physiological needs are not met. Safety needs are not met. Belonging and love needs are not met. And esteem needs are not met. You can never use your mind, right? It's the ego. It's the same with all conversations. Yes, Genesis, yes. When these needs are in a deficiency, there is no leadership. There is no submission. You can't have a happy home if you don't have the tools to build a happy home. If you don't have one best friend that you could call on the phone, all it takes is one. One best friend you could call on the phone and bug out with. See, we having a serious conversation. It's not too salacious. You see, when it was drama going on, the numbers went up. As soon as we quashed the drama, the numbers went down. It's all good because this is me and my sister we're just having a conversation, and y'all are more than welcome to, review, add on, whatever. We don't care. But, we could do this if there was nobody sitting here because this is how we talk all the time. We built. But when you live in a world that everybody's trying to find their lobster, it becomes insanity. Because everybody's listening to everybody else that don't got no good advice.
No. Yeah. And
I'm proud of us because we stayed on topic, even with the intended distraction. That's another thing a lot of these conversations lack. Focus. as you watch this back on the replay, this is a timeless video. This is timeless content. Because if I wanted to, I could put chapters in this, and it follows an archetype and a storyline. And
Okay.
Joshua, whether he knows it or not, unwittingly, y'all see what I had queued up. You can't make it up. That's that divine spirituality, that divine leadership. And y'all got to see in real time before I even showed you.
Yeah.
But anyway, Saturday, we're gonna be. He did. Listen, everybody, I'm just gonna tell you right now. You cannot debate with me because my words and my hands are guided by the words in the hand of the unseen. But maybe that's because I'm stepping into my transcendence. I've been self-actualized for a long time. Stepping into transcendence, I allow myself to be led more spiritually, even when I do my lives, no matter what the live is about. Even when I am dragging someone to hell, please believe before I click live, I prayed on it. Stop playing with me. I'm not here for everyone. I'm here for those that are willing to have their mind free. All you red pill, blue pill, red fish, blue fish, one fish, two fish, i.e. green eggs and ham people on these platforms. Y'all have whole sectors based around the matrix, and you don't even understand the fundamental principles of the matrix. You can't free a mind from the matrix that doesn't want to be freed. Y'all want to be free. Yeah, Lola.
You're right. People really don't want to be free because it feels good. That's really what drives human interactions, the feeling of feeling good, right? I heard someone say to someone else, to the point of advice, you got to get out of the matrix, and you got to stop, stop listening to women. Get out of the matrix, right? Meanwhile, the conversation had been about, there being essentially a covert system of power behind the perceived power system, right? But somebody was saying, hey, listening to women is the matrix. And it's like, the only reason why you listen to anything is because your responsibility to it is to interact with it in a smooth and concise way. Like, that's it. If you want to understand pain, you listen to people in pain. You know what I mean? So listening is an art form. And I think this exchange, like Ross said, is timeless because the difference in, let's say, even the titles of the book, the art, you see what I'm saying, versus the law. The art is about getting something that is within the circle of life. You see what I'm saying? That you are owed if you can live up to that measure to get it. However, the law, you apply a law the wrong way, you ain't getting anything. It's just not. So, I think it's more important that we understand why we're having a conversation, like then let's say the points that people can argue when they replay this. You see what I'm saying? Some people may say, well, the 48 laws of power is great, because I applied it here or there and it worked. And I don't think that's a point of contention. However, I think in the broader scheme of things, because we're thinking of things in a larger scheme, looking at what people complain about the most, which is their interactions with human beings. Meanwhile, they see each other as enemies, but they haven't even taken the time to get to know their enemy, but they think they're at war with somebody or another gender. this is the hypocrisy of the ages. You're at war with a being that is like yourself, but you haven't even thought, let me study that being. Let me study what the different faces of that being, instead of me thinking that, oh, well, these people are supposed to act like this and they're not acting like that. So therefore, like it's like, listen, everything has different faces. Like, I've seen a shark devour a human being. And I've also seen a shark swim up to a human being and open its mouth and ask for help. There's different faces to everything, especially people. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm not always intellectual. Sometimes I'm petty. Sometimes I'm ghetto. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes, I can be on my business tip. Sometimes I can get, in my philosophical bag. It's different faces to me. You see what I'm saying? I'm a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm an aunt. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm a friend. Like, I have so many different faces to me that for you to expect one face is for you to be self-deceived. And I think a lot of times we are self-deceived. Like, I don't know everything about men, but I'm not afraid to learn as I go. You see what I'm saying? And not because I'm trying to manipulate men in that way. I do understand that the human psyche sometimes needs to be manipulated for it to work. It's a certain level of that. Like, for me, images sometimes takes away the conscious mind's doubt. You see what I'm saying? Like, strangely, icons, you see what I'm saying? Logos. It takes away the conscious doubt and allows for the subconscious to flow more easily when it comes to things. Like, if you've never accomplished something, right, your conscious mind says that's not logical. You can't do that. But your subconscious has no filter on it. If you put something, if somebody or you put something in your subconscious mind that you can do a thing, you will continue until you do said thing. Your conscious mind is there to filter for your safety. It's not there to filter for your accomplishments. No. So I think, there's a certain level of understanding we have to have about ourselves and each other. But again, that is the art. You see what I'm saying? That's not the law. That's the art. And I think that's a major difference that I take away from comparing these two books and philosophical ideas. That one is truly about literally what it means to say and art to knowing thyself, knowing thy enemy, versus the law of interacting in a state of war, if that's how you want to say it. But I like the conversation. It's one of the first conversations I've had like this about this subject. To be honest, I see like somebody posted in the chat that they hadn't read either book, and strangely, I had read both books, but I hadn't compared them at all until today. You see what I'm saying? Because you read, you know what I mean. But yeah, I do appreciate the back and forth and hearing Raw's perspective. In terms of wholeheartedly disagreeing with the 48, the infamous 48 laws, and taking that bold stance, but also holding her own in saying, okay, let's look at the other side, and having the patience to come and say, let's flush this out, because clearly people did not understand what I was saying. And maybe it's because they haven't had this conversation before and it's a shocker. Cool. But let's come back to the middle. That takes a lot of maturity, because I'm going to be honest with you, catch me on the wrong day, I'm not explaining nothing. But you're going to have to get it how you live, because I had to do it. Like, that's just me. But she came and blessed you people. But you know what I mean? Shouts out to Raw. But I enjoyed the conversation. I think definitely you'll have to come back to that, because I'm sure people are going to get in the comment section and post different quotes and stuff.
Yeah, they might not want to do that, but we with the ish. But there was an ask earlier to know the website. The website that we were pulling from today was from Barking Up the Wrong Tree. BAKADESUYO.com. It is an article written by the wonderful Eric Parker, a noted author, touted in, everywhere. Wall Street Journal, just a little bit of everywhere, a little bit of everywhere. So, I know, I'm a black woman, right? Like, oh my God, I'm a black woman. I'm a black woman with a LinkedIn and a professional profile that does a whole bunch of shit. And I actually read volumes and volumes of books. And I don't stick to urban noir and all that other jazz. Like, I actually have a mind, and my ideology is my ideology. I'm fortunate enough that I've lived on both sides of the track. We had moments in my childhood where we struggled, but I also had the vast majority of my life growing up all right. I mean, we ain't rich or whatever. Don't ask me for no cash app because I'm broke. Hey, the cash app, $sign butterfly progressive. But I've been around the people or two, you know what I'm saying? But my job, the way my jobs is set up and whatever, I've been exposed to a little bit of culture and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? Little ballet, little opera, you know what I'm saying? This, that, the third, whatever. Shout out to the Geishas. But, you can take everybody else's word for it, or you could be a cloud watcher for a while. In fact, I recommend the majority of people, if you ain't been here, stay in the clouds. Shh. Be quiet. Get a notebook and a pen. Write some things down. Don't ever take my word for it. Do your own research. Get your own perspective. And then come to me with something that makes sense. Now, as to the poll that we did earlier today, the audience has voted, and 51% of the audience chose The Art of War. That is the book that they would prefer to build their foundations on.
Not 51%.
Yes, only 47% chose. What's that other book? The 48 Laws of Power. Yeah, only 47% chose that. So, that is what it is. If you're a proponent for either one, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Anything you disagree with, anything you agree with, let me know. Again, we're going to give you the tea. We're going to give you a little mess or whatever, but in the vein of homeostasis and balance and interdependent organisms. In this brain, we got all of that rah-rah stuff, but then we have all of the science that I keep telling y'all that I have a degree in degrees in science. Degrees, several. If you're in the know, then you're in the know. If you're on my LinkedIn, then you really know. But if you're not, I'm just a ratchet black chick on YouTube, baby. But that being said, you couldn't vote. You haven't read either one of them yet. It's an opportunity to read them both. Hey, Make a Change. Hey, Marcus. If you thought you didn't like me before, allow me to be the first one. Lord, I'm going to put you in the back for this one. Allow me to be the first one to let you know you're really not going to like me now. Because at the end of the day, I've been hiding a lot of me. Because I know that a lot of people really just can't take it. They can't take this pressure. Don't play with it. Don't play with it. Don't play with it. Don't come. And not because she's spicy, and not because she's going to give you pushback or whatever, but because I am very much well-rounded. Welcome to the B-sides. See you later. You know what I'm saying? We out here. Peace.
This is New York. Fuck, I look like killing a nigga from woman. Fuck, I look like being nice, sweet, charming, and woman. Get the fuck out, loose. You ain't welcome anymore. Get the fuck out, loose up. We ain't feeling you no more. Get the fuck out. Move the fuck out. Get the fuck out. Move the fuck out. Get the fuck out. Move the fuck out. Get the fuck out. We ain't feeling you no more. Get the fuck out. Move the fuck out. 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 It's me. Can't you see the baddies coming through? Can't you hear the baddies coming through?
bitch move. Can't you see the baddies coming through, bitch move. Can't you hear the baddies coming through, bitch move.